system isn't cooperating, but it's okay. We have emerged. We're now in public session again. Our brief recess is over. For the public record, can the clerk call the roll, please? Is that Roxanne? Is you okay?
Councilman Blumetti,
Here.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Here.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Here.
Mayor Chiarello.
I'm here. Can you please join me in our salute to our nation's flag? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. Oh, there you go. Right. I will start by reading a proclamation for Pride Month. Whereas the Township of Sparta is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, and equity for all people in the community. And whereas the rainbow flag is widely recognized as a symbol of pride, inclusion, and support for social movements that advocate for LGBTQ people in society. And whereas all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, LGBTQ individuals have had a measurable impact to the cultural, civic, and economic success of our country, and the struggle for dignity and equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender people is reflected in the tireless dedication of advocates and allies who strive to forge a more inclusive society. And whereas the Township of Sparta is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, and equality for LGBTQ people in our diverse community. And whereas while society at large increasingly supports LGBTQ equality, it is essential to acknowledge that the need for education and awareness remains vital to end discrimination and prejudice. And whereas this nation was founded on the principle that every individual has infinite dignity and worth, and the Township of Sparta calls upon the people of this municipality to embrace this principle and work to eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists. And whereas celebrating Pride Month influences awareness and provides support and advocacy for Sussex County's LGBTQ community, and is an opportunity to take action and engage in dialogue to strengthen alliances, build acceptance, and advance equal rights. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township of Sparta does hereby proclaim that the month of June as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month, and encourages all community residents to reflect on ways we can all live and work together in a community in commitment to mutual respect and understanding. And at this time, I'd like to ask for members of the PFLAG group to join me.
PFLAG Sussex County is honored to accept this proclamation. We thank all the members of the Sparta Town Council for providing this recognition of Pride Month for our LGBTQ citizens. As Mayor Dan mentioned in the proclamation statement, pride is important as an acknowledgement of equality, dignity, and safety for our community. So we really appreciate this visible sign of support from our local government. Thank you.
Going in or? My turn. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this time, we will have a short presentation about the PCED zone. There is an ordinance on the agenda for introduction only. I want to remind those in attendance and in the council that it is our policy that we do not discuss the merits of an ordinance on its introduction. The debate of the ordinance will happen when the ordinance is up for a hearing, which will be at the subsequent council meeting. So at this time, this is just a presentation on the subject. And the presenter is Ron Day from our planning board. Not to put you on the spot, but you're on the spot.
Okay, I'll talk to the presentation. Does everybody have a copy up there? Okay, so let me start off just by, first of all, saying, thank you on behalf of the Ordinance Review Committee and my fellow planning board members. Thanks for the opportunity to present what we have done and some of the thought process behind it. If I go to slide 2, I just want to do a quick introduction of the subcommittee team members. Jeanette Burke, who's here with us tonight, myself, Bill Enright, and Ernie Rickstadt, as well as Tom Collins, who could not be here tonight, Mike Mistretta, who's our board planner, and Dave Simmons, who's our board engineer. So I'm going to move on to slide 3. So when you look at slide 3, this is the subcommittee objective. So when we first kicked this off back in probably the March timeframe, we started off, it was just going to be PCED and PDRM2. The public had asked that we expand it to include all 4 zones, as you see there, the economic development, PDRM1, PDRM2, and PCD. And the purpose is to review the ordinances and propose some draft changes that the subcommittee determines would better align with the Sparta Master Plan, the New Jersey Planning Commission Office of Planning Advocacy. They put out a report back in September 7th, and the Sparta Town residents' concerns. In addition, one thing you don't see here, because it came up after we kicked off, was back in April of '28, the Highlands Council also came out with a report relative to their policies for warehousing in the Highlands region. So part of those recommendations are included in what we did as well. And in fact, what you'll see those is in the preamble to the ordinance, there's a bunch of whereases that talk about the different things that we considered. And you'll see some of the recommendations that we use, as well as the links to the data that was included in the Highlands report. I'm going to move on to slide 4. And by the way, I think the slides that we're talking to the publics have seen these at the various planning board meetings as well. So the ground rules, number 1 is all recommendations must conform with the requirements of the existing master plan and any amendments thereto. Number 2 is moratoriums and no build zones are not legal, so we couldn't come up with any recommendations that had either one of those. And I know when we went through the previous ordinance, there was a lot of discussion on conditional acceptance and what that means. So what we said is if we come up with any new conditional acceptance relative to any of the uses, that the objective has to be measurable, attainable, and realistic in order to increase the likelihood of any success if challenged. Okay, I'm going to move on to slide 5. So I thought it'd be important before we get into the changes, make sure everybody understands the zone and what it looks like. So slide 5 is an aerial view of the zone. And you'll see in the middle of the page, there is a region that's highlighted in yellow. So that is the zone itself. It consists of, I think it's 7 or 8 lots. It's just under 50 acres. Just to get you acclimated in terms of where it is, for anyone that's not familiar. Across from that, you'll see a big white building. That is the ShopRite. And the first arrow is, you'll see there's a road that leads to Route 15, which runs parallel to the top line. And there's a traffic light there, and we'll talk to that traffic light a little bit as we get further into the report. Another important area that we were concerned with is off to the left. You'll see there's a wellhead property there, and there was a lot of environmental concerns because there's a potential road to come through in that area. as a secondary access. So we wanted to make sure that the wellhead property was protected. So we put protections in place to do that, and we'll talk to what they are as we get further into it. Also, just relative to the PCD zone. So the big lot, I think, that everyone's is really looking at is the field across the street from the ShopRite, and you'll see that's the bottom lot in the photo here. I think it's important for everyone to understand that that lot has a large area of fresh water wetlands. There's a wetland transition area, as well as front and rear setbacks. So even though as big as that lot is, it's very limited in terms of what the buildable area is because of the wetlands and the setbacks. Okay? So I'm going to move on to slide 6. So what this is now you've got a view of what the PCED looks like. This is a list of permissible uses as it exists today. And you'll see here there's 2 blocks. What those blocks are is that's actually copied right out of the PCED Master Plan Amendment. And it talks to what are the uses that are allowed today. And there's about 20 uses. If you go down the list there, just to call them out for people that can't see the chart. Right now, PCD allows for office buildings, banks, retail uses, restaurants, including restaurants with drive-throughs, indoor theaters, banquets, hotels, churches, agriculture, scientific and research development laboratories, process and manufacture, indoor recreational use, outdoor recreational use, microbreweries, pre-existing storage buildings, and warehouses. And next to the warehouse, you'll see there's an asterisk there because when we brought forward ordinance 2221, that subsequently prohibited fulfillment centers, distribution centers, parcel hubs, and trucking terminals. So they are no longer allowed. And that is the only changes that's been made to the PCD ordinance since it came into place back in 2018. So I think the important thing to recognize here is that there are a lot of potential uses should we receive an application today. So the goal of the subcommittee was to say, let's get this right size so we can make sure that whatever comes in is something that everyone can agree is the right uses, the right sizes, and has the right standards. So I'm going to move on to slide 7. So I want to talk to just what some of those standards are that those uses can. This is just the key ones. So it provides for planned commercial development of greater than 20 acres. And if anyone likes, I can have Mike try to talk to planned development versus a single lot to make sure everyone understands the differences there. And if not, I'll keep going. Okay. Retail buildings must have residential appearance. All the buildings must have a unified architectural design, as well as any new development requires the developer to provide a new road at the traffic light. And that was the light we looked at on the map previously. Again, when you see that light today, when you come out by Starbucks, it dead ends on 15 and you can see into the field. So the developer would have to build a lot on that road to provide access to whatever development they do. In addition, there's a secondary road where the ordinance encourages developers to provide a new road, a secondary road from Wilson Drive. There are no curb cuts allowed, and that's to prevent people from making left-hand turns as they come in or exit it for any new development. There are some existing developments that have that, but any new development cannot have any new curb cuts. Impervious coverage, so the current ordinance allows for 40% coverage, impervious coverage of the lot, with incentives to increase it to 50% depending on your contribution to the new road. No building can exceed 40,000 square feet. Again, we talked to the distribution centers, fulfillment centers, trucking terminals, and parcel hubs are prohibited. Gasoline service stations, car washes are prohibited. Any use involving hazardous material, as listed under the New Jersey DEP site remediation program, is also prohibited. And any use regulated by the underground storage program of the state of New Jersey and the federal government is permitted. So that's a snapshot of what the ordinance looks like today. And again, if we were to get an application today, that would be the bar that we would have to review that application against. So with that, let me talk about some of the changes that we've made to it. And I'm going to skip through 8 and 9. It probably makes more sense to, I'll talk to those as I go through them. So I'm going to jump to slide 10. Okay? So the changes that we are recommending, the subcommittee is recommending is, right now, the current building size is 40,000 square feet. We're recommending that be reduced to 25,000 square feet, or under 2,000 gallons of waste, of a septic system that can handle 2,000 gallons of waste. Let me give you a little background to why those weren't arbitrary numbers, a little background as to why we picked those. So when you look at the areas nearby, and I'll talk to Gale Court, Wilson Drive, the buildings across the street in the North Village Shopping Center, all of those buildings are, well, the majority of those buildings are 25,000 square feet or less. So the thought process is, I think that the town has learned to live with those, with that size building. It would also keep it consistent if we made this one, if we adjusted this to 25,000 square feet, consistent with the surrounding area. So it just kind of blends everything, gives it a real comprehensive look. The reason that we actually tied it to a septic system as well is, one of the things we looked at when we were talking amongst the subcommittee members is, recognizing that when you look at the ED zone, the buildings could have been a lot bigger than what exists today, 25,000 square feet or less. And a lot of them are like even 10,000 square feet, 15,000 square feet. So we asked, what's driving it? And the thought process was, what we determined is, a lot of it's being driven by the septic system. Because when you look at PCDD, in those buildings, they're all on septic. So in talking with Dave Simmons, he felt that based on standards, that the 1999 gallons per day should help drive the size of a building. If you're going to, and Dave, I may need a little help talking to this one. So depending on the use, it's not the same in every building. So a warehouse is going to allow for less gallons per day, because you don't have as many people in the building as, say, a restaurant. But in the end, if you get a high-use building, such as a restaurant, you may not even be able to do 25,000 square feet. You may have to do 20,000 square feet, because it's tied to 25,000 square feet or that type of septic use, whichever is less. So that was the first bullet. The second one is the impervious coverage. So the current ordinance allows for 40% impervious coverage of the lot area. We're recommending that be reduced to 30%. And the thought process to that was, a lot of that came from the Highlands Region report that we noted that came out in, I believe it was April, where they said that impervious coverage is widely recognized as the largest factor in degradation of water quality. And they highly recommended that towns start reducing impervious coverage. So in this particular zone, we felt 30% was fairly easy to do because of some of the setbacks, some of the smaller building sizes. So our recommendation was 30% based on that analysis. Another thing that we did is we mentioned there's some wetlands in the rear of the property. So we actually revised the rear setback. I think it was 50 feet as it is in the ordinance today. We revised it to 300 feet. And the purpose of doing that is to drive all the buildings up front, keep them out of the wetlands area, and keep everything closer to the road. And again, most of that area, which is a pretty large area, you can't build on anyway. So it's just moving everything up front and helping to protect the wetlands and the aquifer. Another thing that we recommended is when you read the ordinance today, it talks about light industrial use, but it didn't define it that we could find. So we actually came up with a definition. It said that any manufacturing, fabrication, treatment, or packaging that does not generate hazardous materials regulated by the technical regulations of the New Jersey DEP under the site remediation program. So when you talk to light industrial use, it's clear what that includes and what that doesn't include. A fifth recommendation that we have is we added a couple new uses to it. One was pharmacy. As a result of some discussion with the public at the last meeting, that was upgraded to read as a retail pharmacy. So it's real clear what type of a building can go in there. We've also added a 24-hour emergency care, both of those as new permitted uses. The one thing that we did, and I do want to talk to this, make sure everyone understands it, is previously the zone allowed for hotels, motor inn, conference centers as a permitted use, and we actually removed that. And the reason that we removed that is when you look at the size of the building, would it be 40,000 as it is now, or 25,000 square feet? You're not going to be able to put a hotel or a motel in that particular area, especially if you're running on septic. And the other concern we had is, and if anyone tried to get in, it's probably not the type of hotel that you want to see in Sparta. It's not going to be like a Marriott or a Mata or anything like that. It's going to be something different. Now, given that, that's not to say we don't want hotels or motor inns or conference centers. We just think this is not the proper zone for it. So when we look at the economic development district as part of our next step, there may be some spots in there, such as, that's a pretty big zone, and it runs along Route 15 all the way up by Sparta Trades and, right on 15. So there might be some bigger areas up there that aren't as environmentally sensitive as this, as well as there are also zones currently in town that allows for bread and breakfasts. So the reason we took it out of this particular this zoning district was it just didn't seem to fit the footprint, given the environmental sensitivity as well as the size of it. A seventh change that we recommended is we modified churches, drive-through, and driving ranges, currently showing as permitted uses, and changed them to conditional use. And I know there was some talk on that, so I just want to clarify what that means, and it kind of goes back to the initial page. So as conditional uses, if I look at a church, say, before it was permitted, there was no conditions. There is a conditional use for churches in our ordinance. It says, number one, you got to show your church. You have to have a certain road frontage, which is different than what's currently in the PCD, a little bit bigger. In terms of drive-throughs, again, there were no standards there in the current ordinance, so we tied it to the conditional use. And what that does, it requires certain maintenance procedures to be put in place, as well as the parking areas are different than what's in the typical PCED. So what we're doing is we're adding more standards that make to what we felt were common sense and are currently in the ordinance. They just weren't referenced in the PCED. So we're tying them to those particular increase in standards. I won't go to the others unless somebody has any questions on that. 8, we added some new objective standards to significantly reduce potential traffic problems associated with drive-throughs. So again, if you remember, when you look at the ordinance as it's written today, both in the master plan and in our ordinance and the regulations, the online regulations, you will see that drive-through restaurants is a permitted use. So we've made it we made a conditional. In addition to that, we've added new conditions. The biggest one, probably the most important, was that we said if you're going to have a drive-through, we don't want to experience the traffic that we've seen with other drive-throughs. I think we've got some lessons learned there. So we added a condition that you have to have a queuing of 12 cars that starts at the point of ordering to the point of pick up the window, the pickup window. And the point there is to keep all those cars off the road so they don't back up onto 15 and cause a problem. There were other things that we did there as well in terms of making sure that the menus aren't visible from the street and serve as a distraction to drivers. Let me see. Number 9, we've added new objective environmental standard protection. So when you read the ordinance, read through the ordinance, you've seen things that talk about, we talked about the wellhead properties on the initial map. So we established a 50-foot setback from the wellheads. So if there is an accidental spill or something like that, if the road was to be developed, There should be enough room now to protect it and protect the aquifer a little bit better than it was before. We talked about the rear yard setbacks, and as well as the reduction in impervious coverage from 40% to 30%. So all those are new environmental standards that we're recommending be put in place that aren't there in the existing ordinance today. We've enhanced some existing architectural standards. We've limited the number of dock doors for any building to quantity 3. So I'll just talk to that for a moment if I could. The thought process there was when you look at the type of warehouses that would go in this zone, they're not going to be the same type of warehouses that we think you're going to see in the economic development district. So we felt that a quantity of 3 dock doors for any warehouse that goes in this particular zone was a sufficient number. And we talked it over with our planner and our engineer, and they gave concurrence. They thought that was the right number given what we're looking at here. Let me see. I'm going to skip over slide 20, and I'm going to continue on slide 11. So another thing that we did in this ordinance, when you read through it, is you'll see that we've added the requirements for environmental studies, traffic studies, and community impact statements for any planned development. So again, just to be clear, planned development is any development over 20 acres. We did not put this in place if somebody wants to do like a 25,000 square foot warehouse. There's already standards that are in our site plan, but and we didn't think that would have enough impact to really require the full package. So what we did on the 22-21, we moved all those studies over to here as well. And that's actually where when we started this whole exercise, that was part of the intention, was to do that. 13 is we deleted underground and underbuilding parking. 14, the reason we did that is the ordinance allows for that, but we just didn't see that as having a residential appearance. So we just didn't think it really made sense. We want to keep this as residential looking as we can. 14, when you look at the new roads that could be there, both at Wilson Drive and at the traffic light, there was an incentive that says for any use that you provide that could be used for the public access right away, for every square foot you give up, you get 1.5 back in terms of impervious coverage. So the feeling was, whether you're coming from the traffic light or you're coming from the warehouse, you have to build that road. So we didn't think it was necessary to provide an incentive. So, but we didn't want to penalize the developer either. So what we said is for every square foot you give up, you get 1 back. So it's basically an even trade. Another recommendation that we made is in terms of signage. So what we didn't want is to have the appearance as you drive down the road to have all these 16-foot high signs driving down the road like you see on a lot of highways. So when you look at, I think, a lot of the new developments today, they're basically monument-based signs, ground-based signs. So as you're driving down, you're still seeing the sky, you're still seeing the trees, and you're not getting all cluttered with the different signs. So we've actually, our recommendation is to remove the 14-foot high sign and make it any requirement, make them as monument ground-based signs no greater than 8 feet. Just a couple of things we did, we include some hyperlinks to the reference documents. I think you saw those as you're going through the ordinance. Another change that we added, the 17th, was that when you looked at the traffic studies, traffic report had to be done by a traffic engineer, but when it talked about an environmental impact statement, it wasn't real clear who can prepare that. So what we said, it has to be prepared by a licensed professional planner, a licensed professional engineer, or any individual with master's degree or doctorate in environmental sciences, ecology, or similar education background. So if you're going to bring forward an environmental impact statement, you've got to show that you've got the qualifications to do it properly and bring something that has the right meaning that the planning board can rely on when we go through it. The last one, the 18th recommendation, and this was something that was brought up again in our meetings with the public. It was asked that we prohibit animal testing, so we added that as another prohibition. Okay, I'm going to move on to slide 12. So, as we're looking at this, we're looking at this as a two-phased approach. The first phase is basically to get something in place now and maintain consistency with the master plan. But there may be some things as part of a master plan update that we want to look at. I think we want to investigate how to encourage, maintain, and increase agricultural uses, possibly reevaluate the use of drive-ins, reevaluate the use of warehouses and light industrial use in this zone, as well as there may be some other things in there as well. But the feeling was we couldn't do that now because it wouldn't be consistent with the master plan. And again, all these things that I'm mentioning here, when you look at the actual ordinance in the master plan, they are specifically called out. As well as maybe, take another look at the impervious coverage. We went to 30%. Is that the right number? Maybe there's other, other suggestions, and maybe we'll have more time to really understand it better. So maybe they might want to increase it, maybe they want to decrease it, but I think it's worth I think the subcommittee felt it was worth a second look when it comes time for the master plan. So moving on to slide 13, the last slide. So just to summarize the changes that we made, we try to right-size the existing uses and existing standards with what we know today. Again, when the initial PCED ordinance was written, I think the feeling was it was a very well thought out, well-written ordinance. But the landscape has changed since it was written in 2018. We now have North Village. We have Wilson Drive and Guild Courts that have been developed. So there's a lot more development that's occurred. So we're trying to right-size it to consider all that development as well as the road use and just having a good comprehensive look throughout the area there. We provided some enhanced environmental protections. We went over those as I went through the presentation. We've reduced some potential traffic issues associated with some permissible development uses. And I think what the ordinances tend to do, I think the big takeaway is enable changes that can be put in place until such time as a master plan amendment can be proposed and adopted. So I hope that helps. I know you received a lot of data, there's a lot of red lines and a couple different PowerPoints, so hopefully this helps everybody to tie it together. And hopefully it will be consistent with what you expected to hear tonight based on the information you were given. So with that, I thank you, and if anybody has any questions, be glad to answer them.
Actually, I think we'll hold off on questions
Okay.
until the hearing, because this is still the introduction of the ordinance, and the purpose of the introduction is to get this out into the public, so the public has a cycle to digest it before we come back and debate it. But thank you very much for doing that.
All right, thank you, and I apologize for the.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but we'll try to get this presentation. Can we maybe put this on our website or
Okay,
something? Or,
thank you.
Invite them back with the professionals for the hearing.
that would be a good idea. Would you come back at the hearing so we can get our questions and answers at that time?
Absolutely,
And if you
absolutely.
can join us as well, that would be great.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from March 28, 2023?
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from March 28th,
Thank you. May I,
2023.
thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion or debate? All those in favor of approving those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? All right, the minutes are approved. May I have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from April 25th, 2023?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from April 25th, 2023.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second the motion.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstain? All right, the minutes are approved. Will the manager please read the manager's report or introduce the manager's report?
Thank you, Mayor. Utility Department, the Water Sewer Utility Administration Office will be moving to the Sparta Utility location on 12 Park Lake Drive on Monday, July 10th. Payments are still continue to be accepted by the tax collector's office in the town hall. Public Works Department. The department road crews continue to work on stormwater catch basins renovations, most recently addressing the basins on Main Street. Building and ground staff have been busy completing the following: installation of new Sparta Township Park maintenance sign on the renovated maintenance garage at Station Park, painting over the graffiti on the concrete wall located on County Route 517 by West Mountain Road at the request of Sparta Police Department and in time for the high school graduation. Installation of 6 lighted bollards outside the Township Hall located on the handicap ADA ramp to the main entrance of the town hall. Parks and Recreation Department. Several of Sparta's senior citizens participated in the Sussex County Senior Olympics on Tuesday, June 22nd, with some of the participants taking home medals in several events, with the team placing 3rd overall. A big thank you to the Municipal Alliance Committee who helped fund the practices, or, excuse me, the practices and supplies needed to keep this event going. The day camp at Camp Sacagawea is ready to start on Monday, July 3rd. All spring sports are completed. The Little League program has several successful teams, with Sparta is hosting at least 2 levels of the Little League All-Star tournaments. The senior pool opened on Monday, June 19th, with a full class of senior exercise and over 80 pool memberships to date. All other adult and senior summer programs have started. Projects, update on White Lake Fields. The projects should be finished by the end of the week, with only fencing and backstops and paving of the entrance of the apron complete, to be completed, weather permitting. A walkthrough is being scheduled for those departments involved in the projects. The park staff has done a great job keeping the entire White Lake facility during all the stages of the project. Eagle's Nest. The township used open space funds to purchase the property at 3 Holland Court. Public Works staff have cleared an entrance and started construction of a parking area for the public as well. A path connecting the trails from the parking area to Sparta Glen signage and planted several giant green giant trees along the neighbor's property line to increase privacy are still being completed. DPW solar field, several meetings between Sparta staff and CEP Renewable Energies LLC have been held since awarding the solar lease agreement, with another meeting planned at the end of July, early August. CEP has made progress in surveying, testing the landfill. A subdivision is being worked on with the neighboring property owner in order to accommodate a panel switchgear that cannot be located on the landfill to mitigate the wetlands area and gain final landfill closure. CEP has been working with the NJDEP and the township's consultants, EcoScience, diligently to gain the approvals. Salt barn at the Public Works Building. Contracts and associated requirements have been signed and accepted. A pre-construction meeting was held with the staff and the professionals to discuss various phases of the project. The notice to proceed was issued, and the design drawings were submitted for approval. Dutchman Contracting LLC will be applying for the necessary permits with the construction layout provided to the public works staff. And that's all I have for that. Mayor, I do also have a final report from Mr. Hack. Okay, Mr. Hack also reiterated that the White Lake Fields progress and the salt yard, the salt barn will be done as well. Lionsgate, which is Celia Drive. This development has been ongoing for many years and is about to be resolved, so the vacant lots can be developed and the remaining public improvements can be complete. This will result in a balance of the proposed homes paying connection fees to our utilities, now almost completed, plus being added to the tax rolls. Mr. Hack's last day is actually this week, the end of this week. So our new township engineer will be Corey Stoner of the firm of Harold Pellets and Associates. He has had several meetings with Mr. Hack. They've familiarized themselves with all the ongoing projects, and Mr. Hack is very comfortable with Mr. Stoner and believes that he will be exactly what Sparta needs going into the future. And it's been his pleasure to help Sparta reconsider their engineering needs over the past year as the township engineer. Although some of the initial plans were not completed, I do believe we have cleared up and completed a few tasks that needed attention and addressing. I want to thank everybody for their assistance over the past year. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Manager Jerome. May I have a motion to approve the manager's report as presented?
I'll make a motion to accept the manager's report as presented.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I second the motion.
Excellent. Any discussion on that?
I just have some questions.
Sure.
So I don't know if you can answer them or we need to go back just for an update, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but questions that I had were the movement of the water and sewer utility out to 12 Park Road. You said that's going to start July 10th. And I'm just wondering, right now, if someone has an issue, I think they can go to the water department, get it resolved, and then go pay at the window. So will residents be able, will there be some way for residents to pay? Like, will there maybe be a kiosk there where they could pay online? So if they get their issue resolved, if the issue is with a bill, let's say, will there be like a computer or something located at 12 Park where after it's done, they can then pay the bill? Or are people going to have to come all the way back to here to pay the bill?
They could drop their bill off here. I mean, again, as far as the money goes, I don't want two different boxes. That would cause a whole different security issue.
No, I mean, can we put a computer, right? Can we put a computer there where residents can go right online and put in their block and lot if their issue is resolved and just pay it online like they would from their own computer?
They can do that already.
But I mean, at the site. So in other words, they get their problem resolved and then they can pay the bill. Right now, they can do that here. They can, if they have an issue with their water bill, they can go here, talk to someone in the water department, and then walk over and pay the bill. So I'm just asking, and maybe it's not part of it. Maybe the answer is they'll have to come back here and pay it, and that's fine. I'm just in my mind trying to figure out the logistics of how it's going to work
Yeah,
for the
this is
residents.
mostly out there that will be out there for any service request to the actual utility. Will be done through the office out there. Most of the interaction of the residents are going to be with paying the bill, which is being done at the collector's office.
Okay, so if they have a problem with their bill, they'd come here anyway. Okay. The other thing is at White Lake Field, I was passing through there the other day, and I know that we had discussed at one point the current walking path extending to be around where the new fields are. So is that part of this plan? Can we ask when that's going to be
That would
done?
be probably something I think was in the initial plans. We'll have to,
It was staged. There were separate stages for
Right.
the whole project.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was in the initial stage.
I don't think so. And again, we probably have to relook at the plans out there because obviously they need to be updated.
Because I'm just saying, every time I'm out there, it's unbelievable and it's great how many people are utilizing that path. So I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of I know there's been some change orders. I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that originally that path was supposed to keep going into where the new fields are. So if you can just make sure that that stays in the plans and doesn't get lost.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's in the plans. The original path was built by our staff and was paved by our staff. So I imagine in the future, we would be able to accommodate the same thing. I mean, between the Parks Department and DPW.
I only bring it up because I just don't want it to get lost. That's all. Because I see
No,
so
it's-
many
it's
people using
there.
it. It's great.
Again, we just want to see the fields completed first and actually have that signed off by the contractor so that we can move on.
The other thing I had a question on is Eagle's Nest. So I know the recommendation was they were going to clear it. They were putting in the trees for privacy, and then the recommendation was made to put some type of a open sided shelter if anyone were to get stuck in the woods and the weather went bad, or God forbid something happened, or it was very hot and they needed shelter. So I'm assuming is that also going to be done in this time frame?
So, yeah, somewhere's in that
Okay.
time frame. Right now, I know the lot is there. The trails have been cut out, completed. It's just a matter of putting up
The pavilion.
pavilion or
Okay.
whatever. And again, that for the most part would probably be something that would be done by staff.
Yeah, I think that was the actual plan. Again, I just want to make sure, I know we haven't talked about these things in a while, and my understanding was that that was not going to be in the parking lot so much as it was going to be right at the entrance to the park, so it wasn't, okay, those are my questions, thank you. And thank you for the update, much appreciated, thank you. That's it for me.
Anyone else? All right, all those in favor of approving the manager's report as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Right, the report is approved. At this time, we'd like to open it up to the public for discussion of any items that are not on the agenda. And please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Anand Dash, Sparta. So I'd like to make these comments pursuant to Amendment Number 1.
Amendment number 1?
Amendment 1?
Amendment Number 1 to the United States Constitution.
Okay,
The people of Sparta are very concerned about the proposed development in the Route 15 corridor. And as I had a dialogue with Mr. Hertzberg last time, I can't speak for all of them, and I think we agree, but I can speak for a lot of them. The genuine concern is very real. It's heartfelt, and it comes from as good of a place as the people who don't see the same way. So that wellspring of genuine interest is shared. But the vision on how we effectuate that is where we depart. We can have difference of opinions on how we see our town developing. But if each of us, every 5 years or 10 years, gets to decide, and when you're gone and when I'm gone, and we keep going back and forth on what we all think or believe or opine to be the character, we're not staying true to what that character is that endures beyond any one of us. And that character, by most standards, is a rural character, right? It's a rural character. Sparta is by definition a rural town. It once has been. And we need to we need to enact whatever laws we can to ensure that those vestiges of the rural character stay with us and our future generations. And in order to do so, when we talk about the master plan is a document, a living document, that is the vision of all of us here. And listening to Ron's presentation, the level of detail, the level of study, the level of academics is commendable. But it misses the big picture, right? It misses the big picture of the cry for the people. The cry has been, please, very simple terms. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to be an engineer. You don't have to understand redline, right? You don't have to understand impervious coverage. You don't have to understand uses. You don't have to understand what is a master plan, what is an ordinance, how does the ordinance work with the master plan. It's not a fair request for laypersons. Laypersons charge those in government and charge the professionals to say, this is what we want for our town. However you need to do to work together, please do that. Please come up with a solution, right? As long as we're working together, even with differences of opinion, I'm sorry that everyone will not see what the vision of Sparta is, right? Everybody may not agree on what that vision is. But I think it's fair to say, and I think I can say with a straight face, most, not all, see it as a more rural community. And if we allow development, even on a short-term basis, that allows the chance for that rural character to be forever changed, after we're gone, and we're not here, we can't reverse development. We can't reverse development. We can always, at some point, if after I'm long gone, and you think that I have a unique view, I don't think I do, you can later bring development back. You can say, you know what, let's pave it over, let's build it out. But you can't do it the other way. You can't do it the other way. If you build it out, sure, you can redevelop, you can fix the dilapidated buildings, but you can't do it the other way. We've heard a resounding cry from the people to keep Sparta rural, not to curtail development, not to mitigate development, not to allow some development, but to prohibit development on the Route 15 corridor. There's no ambiguity. There may be difference of opinion by some, and that's fine. That's part of a democracy. And those you can have valid criticisms of why you think that is not progress. But I speak for most. And so I appreciate Ron's presentation, but the charge to, the constituency's charge to the newly elected town council has been unambiguous. Find a solution to keep the Sparta that those who have been here for decades or one day demand. The proposal that was presented tonight doesn't live up to that challenge. I say that respectfully. And I understand that now is not the time to be going into the nuances of it, but there is a way to do it. Enact the master plan that's the vision of the people today, and enact that now. Let's start it now, starting with an amendment to this ordinance that says we are not allowing any development in that zone, okay? And that will be consistent with the vision of the people to keep Sparta rural. And I know we can do it together, even though we have differences, and that's fine, okay? But we can do it. But we have to have the will to do it. And guess what? We have the people, most of the people. I can't speak for each and every one. But we have the will, and we can find a way. We have lawyers, we have engineers and planners, and we can do it. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for anything that's not on the agenda?
Hello, my name is Christy Whitehouse. I live on East Shore Trail in Sparta. And I am someone who would vote just as Anand described. And but I understand that in this town, we have volunteers who are on various boards and representing all the facets of our town. But we really don't have a way of, a cohesive way of uniting those boards so that they do represent the people. And I would say that we've had runaway inflation, runaway development in this town because maybe we could. But now we're at the point where we do need to slow the development down. And I think the only way we can do that is to update the master plan toward that vision. And if we can't do the master plan, we can at least create an open space plan, which was last done in 1984, and we all know how much development there's been since then. I would like to show you the open space plan that was done by the Township of Lafayette and point out a few things, because this is a professional plan that was done by the Land Conservancy of New Jersey, and I happen to be familiar with that organization. I'm not promoting it, but I do know that they do some wonderful work and have represented a lot of the townships in northern New Jersey. And, you know, if I can, I'll give each of you a copy of this. But the main thing is, as Anand said, to engage the public in the planning process. And then we need to identify local land that's important for recreation and conservation. And of course, part of that is determining generational needs, because we have an aging population. So it's not just about sports fields and that sort of thing. There are other considerations. And we need to create permanent deed restrictions for some of these open space properties, and so that we can remove these vacant lands from the that would be in the future used by the Fair Share Housing Authority when they're identifying land for affordable housing. And I'd just like to remind you that round 3 of the affordable housing is in 2025. So it would be good to prepare things in advance rather than doing things as we have been after the horse is out of the barn. And of course, we can document, you know, how these things are being protected and mapping. And I will tell you that the Land Conservancy of New Jersey only charges $13,500 for a professional open space plan, which includes all the mapping, all the, all the planning, and that fee can be reimbursed to the township by the New Jersey Highlands Coalition or through Sustainable New Jersey. We don't have really much, I don't think, in our trust fund. You'd have to tell me about that. But I'd like to just mention that the town of Lafayette in 2012 purchased, this is just an example, they purchased 3 big parcels between 2012 and 2018. One happens to, just the best example, is a 53-acre parcel that was a farm, and the town didn't want it to be developed. So at the end of the open space plan, they were eligible to apply for grant funds. This property that was $455,000, closer to $456,000, they received $228,000 in state funding toward the purchase of that land. They received another $200,000 in county funding for that property. In the end, Lafayette only had to pay, they paid a little less than $28,000 for 53 acres. I would also question, after hearing this new ordinance, isn't it possible the town could buy this PCED area? Maybe that's a pipe dream, but I do appeal to you as council members to consider that updating our open space plan is probably a priority that should be addressed. And may I give you copies of this?
Actually, I was going to go up there to move the.
Well, how many do I need? I think. Okay, I have 10. All right, thank you.
Yeah, and Ms. Whitehouse, I would, if you wouldn't mind, I tend to lose paper copies of things. We probably all do. And if you wouldn't mind just emailing the council what you spoke about today would be helpful. And any points that you think are pertinent to this
Okay.
document and your proposal, I really encourage you to stay on it and keep showing up and pester us as much as you feel capable of doing.
And of course, the plan like this is on Lafayette's website as well as lots of other municipalities. But anyway, I certainly can email things.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
As some may know, the Environmental Commission is proceeding forward, exploring an open space committee as well, which ties nicely into that.
Mark Scott, 9 Pueblo Parkway. And Dean, that's wonderful that the Environmental Commission is exploring an open space committee. I'd like to throw my hat in the ring to be a participant on that. I grew up in a town called Reading, Connecticut. It's in northern Fairfield County. When I was born in 1960, Bridgeport Hydraulic and the town owned approximately 27% of the town. By the time I was 20 years old, the town owned 53% of the town. And that's because we put in an open space plan. And we had a very forthright, very forward-thinking leader in our town that believed in open space and convinced the townspeople that maybe we should have open space. And maybe we should take a lot of the land out of the inventory and therefore reduce congestion, development, pressures on housing, pressures on the schools, and pressures on the community. Today, Reading is very similar to the way it was 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 60 years ago. Population hasn't changed tremendously. It went up from 4,000 people to approximately 8,000 people now. And I would like to see, I moved to Sparta because A, I have to live in New Jersey, and B, I like open space. And Sparta obviously had a lot of open space, certainly 30 years ago. And that seems to be shrinking. It seems to be shrinking and disappearing from the inventory. And there seems to be a change in our thinking that we have to develop. And I don't understand why we have to develop. I make my money working with developers. And when you talk to developers, they're not developing in their backyard. They're developing in someone else's backyard. Just think about that for a minute. Think about this mega project that's on tap for this town. None of those people live in Sparta. None of those people work in Sparta. This is our town. We should keep it our town. I don't understand why we can't start to buy the town. I remember Josh was speaking about this just a few months ago, about how you wanted to increase the amount of open space in this town, and you wanted to put some of that open space to use with farmers, and I think you spoke about increasing swine production in the town, which I'm not necessarily in favor of, but you did speak of that. Pigs, right? Swine? Okay. But that's neither here nor there. But it was a great idea to increase open space in our town.
We already own the land that I was speaking about.
I understand that. And there's no reason we can't add to that.
We spent for years negotiating hundreds of acres of purchased land.
I understand that.
Do you?
Yes. Why can't we continue to even be more aggressive?
We are,
Okay,
have
well,
been.
let's see it.
we
What-
have been.
What is all this development that you're talking about that's happened over the last few years?
What is the development or the planned development or the push for development?
Hear what it is.
Well, we have a new shopping center here, the Hikemian Center, okay? Well, 20 years ago, I'm talking about 30 years, is my time frame. I've lived here 30 years, okay? The Hikemian piece of property is nowhere near developed. In fact, probably only 10 or 15% of it is really developed. And it certainly, when Mr. Hakimian decides he wants to develop it, he will develop it. Why can't we try to take some of that out of the inventory? Not take it, buy it. Sam, don't we have like $15-20 million in our,
No.
We should just.
How many-
spending the taxpayers' money on land, take it off the tax rolls, so now it doesn't produce money.
well, it doesn't produce much now as raw land. It produces hardly anything, thousands of dollars. Why not just take it out of the pool?
Because there is land that can't be developed that we could buy and make useful for residents.
Okay, well-
Make beautiful spaces out of it where it can't produce taxpayer money, can't produce money that can offset people's taxes,
Well,
right?
why are we in a rush to offset people's taxes?
Inflation at 8%, I mean, there's a lot of reasons.
Right,
Cost of everything,
okay,
cost
but,
of doing business in town.
and the reason, the way to offset taxes is by bringing development in?
Smart development or businesses.
Smart development? 48 million cubic feet of space? 48 million cubic feet of diamond chip space? What will that do to the roads? What will that do to the police? Oh, it'll generate $2 million maybe of tax. It'll generate a lot more than that in expenses for this town.
Made up a lot of metrics on Facebook that just aren't true.
Well, I can prove every one of them with math and be glad to do it.
I just want you to know that we have been actively trying very hard and negotiating for several years to try to accumulate upwards of over 300 acres of open space. We also Neil could also verify this, we've been looking on the rec department at open space that the township already owns and how we can maybe take some of those properties and make them more accessible and more usable as well. But the problem with trying to negotiate for this property is other people own it. So although we can offer and say, hey, we're really interested in working with you to preserve this property, ultimately, it's the existing property owner that has to make the decision that they want to get into an agreement with the township.
Correct.
So we can only reach out, which I can tell you, over the past 3.5, 4 years, we have reached out, and I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, at least minimum over 300 acres of property that we have tried to negotiate with different owners, going out to them to say, hey, we're very interested in working with you to preserve this property, not develop it, preserve it. But the property owners, ultimately, they have to decide if they want to work with us. And so we have gone out to some of them, and the ball is in their court to make that decision. But it's not because we haven't offered, and it's not because we don't value open space. We have actively gone out and asked. So we have done, and we will continue to, as we come across different properties where it makes sense. But again, ultimately, we're not going to take people's property.
I'm not
So-
asking you to take people's property. I'm not
That's what
asking
I'm telling you. What I'm telling you is-
have eminent domain. I'm asking you to change the mindset, that we don't have to develop, that we can slow the development and slow the growth.
I think that's what
and
you're
take
seeing.
take land out of the inventory.
But we can't take land out that we don't own.
I know, but we could tell people that we want to own. Where have we been telling people that we want to buy their property? I've never heard it at one of these town
And
council
there's a good
meetings.
reason you haven't heard, because that's would be contract negotiations that we
Mm-hmm.
can't make public. But to Councilwoman Quinn's point, we have been actively trying to solicit or
Okay.
to negotiate with people.
And that's
to
like
secure-
300 acres a year? Is that the volume you're talking about, or is
Yeah.
that 300 acres?
Not every year, but there have been tracts that have been quite large cumulatively.
I would add, though, that doesn't mean there's no more opportunities ever to keep exploring. Of
course.
I think, yeah.
Of course
so-
not, but what I'm saying is I'm trying to let Mr. Scott know that we absolutely, that is a priority.
That we're
and
doing
we
those
have
things.
been trying to do that, but ultimately, we can only do so much unless one of the property owners decides that they want to work with us, but we have reached out. So my goal is just to try to let you leave here tonight, Mr. Scott, knowing that has been a priority for us, and where it makes sense, we have been trying to do that to get into more preservation. Some of these other areas that are in different zones, people already own that property. So again, it's their decision. And I think what you're seeing is with the changes that were made to, for example, the PCED, or even the changes we made last year to the ED zone, we are trying to do more balanced development. We just heard a presentation from the planning board tonight, from what they came up with as far as additional things that we can maybe do to do things in a balanced way. And I think this is the path forward. We, are not in a position where we can say we're gonna pick this property and never develop it again. But we can try to look at where it makes sense to put measures in place to protect where we can and what we have.
Okay, so thank you very much, and I really appreciate that. Before I leave here tonight, I want to instill into you that I think the time is now that we start really pushing for this open space, that we put this committee together now and we get going on this, and we figure out a path forward, because this town is burning. It's burning. Putting in 880,000 square feet, going to put a Bojangles across from the ShopRite. Well, I mean, what are we going to do next? We're going to put in maybe we should put in a limited service hotel. Those 1,200 truckers a day are going to need a place to sleep, right? Okay. So I think we need a new path, a new plan, a new direction. I think the people of Sparta said that last November when they decided to change the makeup of the town council. So before I leave here tonight, I'd just like to instill that I think it's time for a change, and I think it's time for a change now.
Just one question, Mr. Scott, about your hometown. It's Reddington?
Yeah, it's Reading, Connecticut. Reading, Connecticut.
Reddington or Reading?
Reading, Connecticut.
Okay, have you kept up with how Reading is doing?
Reading's doing very well.
Has it undergone any type of budget deficit that you are aware of in the past 20, 30 years since they instituted this buying of property, where now by, you said 50% of the property is owned by the town, is that right?
Yeah, I'll put something together for you on that.
Yeah.
Why, have you Googled it while we're
No,
here?
I think what your point is that, and I think that the tension that we all have is that, as you can see in our list of expenses, it takes a lot of money to run a town, right? And if you start carving, and I'm just saying this is a concern, if you start prohibiting big blocks of land in the town from uses that could generate revenue, that thereby leads to less revenue for the town, which thereby means less revenue to do all the things that a town has to do.
That's
Fund
great,
its
Neil.
school,
But
and
Neil,
so-
but Neil, you don't have to increase services in schools and roads and all these things if there is no development, if development is slowed. Right now, these pieces of land are sitting there being taxed at $500, $800 an acre, right? I'm not changing the delta of that. I'm not changing the delta of the income there. And you're saying, well, we need to develop this so
No,
that we can get,
I'm not saying
we can
we
get
need to do that.
$10,000
What
an
I'm-
acre in.
what I'm
But then
doing-
we wouldn't have any increase in expenses.
I'm trying to help you refine your arguments.
Okay.
And so,
Then I'll work.
and so what the pushback that you will get is that, well, that sounds like, a fine plan, Mr. Scott, but if we do that, then, we are going to be facing budget deficits year after year. And some of the push to have development in Sparta, I think, generated out of a concern at a time when there was a budget deficit here. And so for those who want to make the argument about open space and, you know, let's slow our roll with development, you're going to have to, you know, persuade folks that we're not going to do so to the economic detriment of the town. Because, you know, we're not going to be able to change the fact that we have to fund our police force, we have to have outstanding schools. And so I'm just helping you try to, you know, as people come along and articulate these reasonings, I think it will go a long way to explaining that they're not mutually exclusive. You can have, you know, slow growth and open space and still have economic boon, as we saw 2 weeks ago when Tammy Horsfield showed up and said that tourism provides $524 million to Sussex County. And a lot of that is driven by our open space that people come to. And so they're not mutually exclusive. And so this isn't just simply, let's just slow the roll and then all of a sudden we have to start defunding certain things that we've become accustomed to, which are an outstanding police force, you know, excellent schools, et cetera. And so I'm just saying that.
That's a great argument. It's very true. I do have to refine my argument, and I'll work on that. Hopefully, I'd have the opportunity to do that on the Open Space Committee.
I would also add, we're not in a deficit situation now. So right
Right.
now, we're at a balance that people seem comfortable with in terms of taxes, in terms of our budget is being balanced. We've been stable for a long time. That, to me, that means that we don't need this intense drive to add more ratables and revenue, not necessarily, unless we're looking to add expenses proportionately.
Or you need a grade school.
If we need to add, then we have to justify that in a certain way. There's other ways to do that. So just because we want to develop to get more revenue, that assumes our expenses are going up from where they are today, and that balance will then be disrupted. That's not necessarily a valid argument unless we have reasons we want to spend more than we're spending now today. Right now, we're maybe out of balance. So to develop open space or land
school
that,
budget went up
if
6%.
we're going to develop space that's not developed right now, we're not losing much on it right now, and, you know, we might gain more. So there's a balance there too. It's not necessarily we have to keep driving to get more revenue. I mean, inflation affects everything, so it's going to affect taxes too that come in.
I think if I can build on that just for one small point, I think you get into trouble when we speak in absolutes, that there's nuance and there's balance, and I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you very much. You know, I think we have to prepare, like our previous speaker talked about. We have to be ready for the next round of COA. The next round of COA is less than 24, 36 months away. And when that happens and the builder remedy suits start coming, multifamily will be pushed onto this town like you wouldn't believe. So I think we should try to do the best that we can now to take existing inventory out of the space and do our best to
Yeah,
prepare.
and just to be clear about that as well, we have an agreement in place that we got into initially when the state came in and gave us what our COA responsibility was. They failed to take into responsibility that they had locked down over 37% of Sparta from being buildable. So our professionals went back, got into an agreement, revised that agreement, and were able to significantly reduce and make it more balanced between the available properties that we have. So we actually, our professionals represented the township and actually negotiated that down based on developable to make it more realistic, because the original number that we got was absolutely unrealistic. And it was because the state came in and looked at 40 square miles and not 37% highlands and, 24 named bodies of water that you can't build on, obviously, and whatnot. So I think we
And
made
David
great
Trost,
strides
when he
there.
was here, did a wonderful job
That was not
in
David
prepping
Trost.
for us for
Yeah,
that.
that was not
And he
David
really
Trost.
protected us in a great way. And now I don't believe that we have all these professionals in-house.
That was Tom Collins that did that as a representative of the planning board under the direction of Neil Spitaletto.
Okay. Let's not forget Dave Trost. He did a good job too. Thank you.
Speaking, okay, all right.
Thank you. Anyone else for anything, items that are not on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, thank you. Will the deputy mayor please make a motion to pay our bills?
Mr. Mayor, may I make a request that we handle Resolution 9.5 or carve it out from the expenditures? That's a a very large payment that's on the expenditures list, but we have to approve the resolution first and have a discussion on that.
Okay.
So if you want to carve out the check payment, I have the check number from the expenditures approval, or whatever way you want to work it.
Let's have a discussion on Resolution 9-5 first. I'd like to open it up to the public first. If anybody has any comments or questions on Resolution 9-5, a resolution authorizing contract change order number 2 and payment number 5 for White Lake Fields with Tomco Construction.
Penny Derrick's tap into Sparta. First of all, do we have a total of how many, this is not the first change order, right?
I will have to defer to the,
This isn't a
or
change order,
CFO.
it's a payment, right?
Yeah, this-
Payment, not a change order.
Well, authorizing contract change order number 2.
Yes, it's not change order number 2.
Is it the change order or the second payment?
It's both.
it was both.
The resolution has both tied in together. So I'm asking, do we know what the total of the change orders has been so far? And this is, you're saying the second one?
It says in the resolution that the change order is in the amount
Number
of
two.
$145,050.63.
Right, it says change order number 2.
Yep. And so you're asking for the aggregate. I'm
Correct.
sorry, do you, so I don't know. Do you have the aggregate, or we might have to get back to you?
Okay. Why are we getting such significant change orders? Is it a deficiency in the design? Are there unanticipated episode, or I can't even think of the word, I'm sorry, unanticipated circumstances for the building? What is driving these? These are pretty significant change orders.
I think it was differences, changes in designs and
So the design has changed since it started, since it went out to bid. So do we know why this is happening? It's not that, for a project of $2 million to have,
check with Mr. Hack first exactly, and then I can give you a clear answer.
I'm just curious as to whether or not it was a deficiency in the original design. Was the bid product not correct or not was robust enough, or?
There was different changes in the original bids and specs that had to be taken care of.
Okay, thank you.
If you want, you can give me a call tomorrow.
I sure will, thanks.
And Sam, with the change order, does that mean, I see the approved contract cost was $2,181,171.01. Does that mean with the change order, you would be going over the approved contract cost?
Yeah, that's why we need the resolution to be done to
I see.
authorize the additional.
So, okay, so it's minor, so when you have a change order, that means that it's a cost that's in addition to the cost contemplated in that 2.1 million figure, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then my understanding, when they came up with the 2.1 million cost, they had a plan in place, and that plan is what drove the 2.1 million figure, is that right? The plan at the time?
Most of it, I believe, again, from my little bit of understanding on the hydraulics of it, was different elevations in the drainage and that needed to be addressed to make the field correct. So I think that's most of it, but I'll get a clear thing from Mr. Hack.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to this particular project, but I can say that both at Ungerman and the field at Station Park, both times they built them, they found groundwater that came up and required redesign so that the fields weren't flooded. So I don't know if that's
It was-
similar to what happened, but you're talking
Yeah,
about
something,
drainage.
it was something on the end closer to like Aaron Way or whatever it is, the roadway there, that I know there was issues with.
So it was an issue found during the construction that caused the change? Sorry. I was asking if it was a change that they found during construction that caused this change order.
Yeah, they found the area where the moisture level was sort of high, that they needed to properly drain and.
Additional drainage was needed.
I do see resolution, I just found resolution 9-5 from January 24. The change order was in the amount of $81,582.88. $81,582.88. This is Resolution 9-5 from January.
That might have been
24.
backstops or something. I know there was a,
Wasn't it the electrical conduit too?
yes.
So right? I think
Yeah,
it was,
there were several things, that had to be changed in the specs.
So my questions are, I'm sorry, we done with the public?
Any other public comments on Resolution 9-5?
The only follow-up question, maybe it's not appropriate, but we have a salt shed coming up. We're going to have these kind of change orders as well. That's just my concern.
No, because that was done by a different engineer.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the council. Any comment on or debate on Resolution 9-5, starting with Councilman Blumetti?
Yeah, so I have major concerns with this. I'm very uncomfortable. So that's 227,000 in change orders, if my math's correct. And I really would like to know if it's due to us changing what we desire, or if it's
No.
the bid or the
it's
contractor
ma-
or the
it's
review.
It's making the project right from what the original designs were.
So that brings me to then, this was reviewed and recommended by CP engineers. So either.
Originally, yes.
Originally, right? So either CP engineers didn't do their due diligence or should be held accountable, or the contractor is underbidding. I'm just putting hypotheticals out there. Either way, that makes me uncomfortable, that this is $227,000. And originally, the project back in 2019 was 1 million. I know the scope then was revised and changed to 2022, when it was 2.1 million plus 200,000 of interest, 2.3 million. So now we're talking 2.5 million, assuming no more change orders.
And I believe the engineering costs were on top of that. I don't believe that included.
Oh, to review
some of the
this,
engineering
yeah.
costs.
So
I remember a
through
specific, a separate resolution for the
yeah,
engineering costs.
so I mean, obviously the
we could
contractor is not
fix
going to
it.
be, obviously the vendor, the engineer is not going to be reviewing more bids for us, right? But they're not we're not working with them anymore, but
The engineer,
the engineer.
correct.
If this is an issue with the bid, then we should consider, if that's true, the vendor, the contractor, whether we do any work with them again. If we're going to underbid and we're going to run in change orders, or we should know these things up front for that much of a difference, I would think.
So if you read the second whereas clause, that there are two reasons for the change. One is to comply with plan changes. And another one was a drainage that was, like additional drainage that was found, I guess, in the process of doing the work.
Yeah, but that's what the engineer, I would think, would know, right? If they do their due diligence, is if there's going to be a drainage issue. Don't they check out the soil and the water tables? And, I mean, I'm not an engineer, but those things I would check.
I can just say that it's happened in projects before.
With this contractor or with CP
No,
engineers,
no,
or?
I mean, Ungerman's been there forever.
Do we have any recourse to go back to? I see CP Engineers is on the list tonight to get paid for other separate invoices still. Do we have any recourse with them or the contractor?
You could. You would have
If
to
we do,
establish
it
that
probably shouldn't be discussed here.
you could.
You could, okay. Okay, yeah, that makes me uncomfortable. This is the second one now, and those things should have been known up front. Different decisions might have been made if the project was costing 2.5 million, right, instead of
it was always 2.5.
Second on this one, is coincidentally ties into some of the public comments, is that, again, it frustrates me so much to see $300,000 of open space funds being planned to be approved tonight to pay for this. You know, I technically, maybe legally, it fits into one of the cases where we can spend money to put in fields like this on land that was bought previously. I would guess the average resident sitting out here and watching tonight, when they think open space, the first thing comes to mind isn't athletic fields. I think we need more of a balance of acquiring, you know, open space preservation. The ordinance says open space preservation, farmland preservation, historic preservation, and then fourth, recreational facilities. I don't know how much of the first three we've done, but I think we need to think of making a more of a shift towards that way. And the ordinance that approved this says that $300,000 is available through the Open Space Trust Fund. Does that legally mean we have to now take it out of that, or can we explore finding another place for the
We
300,000?
raised $300,000, actually it's $330,000 each year in tax dollars from open space.
Yeah.
Which gets put into the trust fund.
Mhm.
So this is just using some of our reserves. White Lake Fields actually were I believe, one of the first properties that were purchased
It was the first
under
property,
the
yeah.
open space funding. The next, there were several properties that we've purchased so far under that. So basically, the program allows you to maintain the properties that you've purchased and make them into a usable place. Okay, yes, this is a baseball field. But prior to that, it was just farm fields, and we've made that into a park. And it's allowable to use that money to make it to something that's usable for the public.
Yep. No, I get it. I know it's not illegal. Just thinking of all the possible ways that this is stated in the ordinance that could be used. And I think what the average person would think out there is we've seen this happen in the past where it's been used for fields. I think needs to be an opportunity to use it for preservation of other types of space.
So Dean, we are trying to do that. That's what we were talking about before, that we have been trying to do that as well with the money.
But we have
And
less money.
also, wait a minute, the other thing is, if you do the history and go back on these fields, many of these fields that were acquired with open space were done in chunks. So the White Lake, there's still pieces of Station Park that have not been completed yet. So I think before these aren't things that we said, hey, let's just put a field here. This is a plan that has been in place for probably over, a decade? To put fields back there and develop the
Almost
back
20
end of
almost
that.
20 years.
Almost 20 years. And
These
it's
are
not a
huge.
baseball field, they're all-purpose fields.
These are huge groups of families in our town that need these, that use these. So I know that you don't care about those things.
I care. Don't tell me I don't care. Don't put words in my
You
mouth.
just said that
No, I think most residents want to see it be used for farmland preservation,
You think
historic
most residents
preservation,
would
open
rather it
space
be used-
preservation, in addition to having fields.
All right, so
No,
then we
I'm
should
saying
ask
we
the
build it
community.
into our budget, Josh.
we should ask the community what they want to see that
Yeah,
money
they want to
spent.
see all of it, right? Not
I don't disagree
out of
with all of
balance,
it.
not out of balance, I'm saying. We want to see all of it. We don't want to take away fields at all. We need these fields, but it should be done with different balances, and we can pay for fields with other money. We should use open
Where's
space
all this money
funds.
coming from? We want to buy all the land in Sparta. We want to.
We could buy land with the open space funds, right? That's
We've
what it's
been
partially meant
trying
for.
to-
It's not a shell game. Either the money comes from the taxpayers or the money comes from a fund that they're paying anyway. Money all comes from the same people.
Well, then let's take the money from the other bucket that's not open space and use it for open space funds then.
That's
If it's a
the
shell
same
game,
bucket.
The problem of it is you're running out of
Same bucket.
buckets.
It's the same bucket.
Yeah.
maybe it was decision-making in the past to spend too much on the fields and less on
Decision-making
the
in the
open
past that
space.
got us $10 million from zero and got
Not
no
financial,
increases
no, not
in 8
financial,
years.
not Sam at all. This is council decisions in the past. I'm saying that deciding where to spend the money, not the financial aspects of it.
But I just said that, and even Dan agreed, he will tell you, it is not for lack of trying that we are not trying to look at areas for preservation. We just spent 15 minutes talking about that. So to say that, and I kind of resent you saying bad decisions from council. We've done amazing things with open space funds, and we've expanded the recreational facilities and increased and enhanced places like the Glen, places like Station Park. We did a survey, and I'm happy, I already gave it to you once, but I will give it to you again, and it's posted online. We asked residents, almost 2,000 of them responded to us and told us what they want. So just before you make comments like irresponsible
I
decisions.
didn't say irresponsible.
You did.
I said it was based on decision-making in
You
the
said bad
past.
decision, or what, you used.
Imbalanced
You
or-
had an adjective
Okay.
in there, and I don't appreciate it, because those decisions were based on data collected by our residents. So we didn't blindly make these decisions. We put a survey out from the planning board on the quality of life, and I will send it again to you.
That was what year?
We did not, 2019 and 2019.
Okay.
And we got back, I think it was 17-something responses. We did in person, we did online. So the decisions that have been made up till now were not just made by members of this council. The reason why we sent that out was to get from the community, hey, what are you looking for? Hey, what are the things that you want? And that's where the decisions came from. And I will tell you, the second thing was fields, facilities. So that's why these decisions were made. So if you want to talk to me about historical things leading up before you make a comment like that,
Not
I've
necessary.
offered this
No.
to you 100 times.
There you
I
have it.
will sit with you and explain the history. But
Okay.
please don't make comments like that because a lot of work has gone into us validating and making sure we're in line with what our community needs.
Maybe we should do that another one now if it's been a few years. I mean, we have 300,000
Why
waiting
don't you,
here
why
today to
don't you
pay
do
for it.
this? Why don't you pick up the phone and call me and we'll sit down and go through it?
You
and
can
I
send them to
show
me, I
you.
can review them in advance. But if on that list it had farmland preservation, open space preservation, historic preservation, then it would be great data to see. I think you.
It's only great data to see if it's the data you want to see.
No, if these options are on there, then it's probably a valid choice. I don't know what the survey was about. I think we're getting way down a rabbit hole though, Christine. The point is, we have $300,000 right now we're looking to spend on this. And I don't know if we have a choice to look elsewhere for it.
There should be more farmland preservation. I don't disagree with you at all. But the time
None
to
of
do
us
it is
do.
before the farmers sell to somebody, and then that person already has a plan in mind, and then you go in and change all the rules.
Correct.
So they can't do it. Because that's gonna get us sued.
Well, do we know if there's, well, we can't talk about that. Do we know if there's farmland that's available for purchase?
I mean, I don't know. I know that
don't
there
know.
are farmers in town. I'm sure
I
they would
know.
love to have some relief so they don't go out of business.
I'm
I've
sure.
been talking about that for years.
I know, it's important to you. So this is some way to do that, right?
What,
We're not
what,
gonna-
what? Buying their land? No. If you want to sustain farmers, find ways to make it affordable for them to farm.
Well, you can preserve the farmland and keep it as
Oh,
farmland, can't
Jesus.
you?
And then what do we become, farmers?
No, we wouldn't. The farmer
Okay,
would
well,
stay a
who's going to
farmer.
farm it? If the township buys it, who's farming it?
The farmer, if there's farmers that want to keep
So
in
you're
that
going to buy
business.
the property and let the farmer farm it for free?
No, we can preserve it as farmland. I'm sure there's arrangements that can be made where you preserve land, right? And a
Yeah, we
farmer
have
can-
that. And we actually, you need to have side conversations, Dean, because we already have property that is being farmed by local farmers that
I
the
know.
township owns.
I know.
So we're trying, and also, on the Rec Advisory Committee, Neil could tell you, we took great length to talk about, hey, where can we put in more community gardens? Where can we look at these spaces? Right, Neil, in our last meeting, where we talked about this stuff. So this is stuff that's important to all of us. And again, we have spent a lot of time trying to proactively go out and get people to know that we are interested in working with them should they choose to work with the township to preserve their property. But we can't make that decision for them.
Understood. I'm not saying that we can. I just think we keep using money for open space, and there's many uses for open space funds according to the
And
ordinance.
that's what we're
and we
trying to
haven't-
use the open space for.
Well, maybe, okay, let's forget the past then. Maybe starting now, we can
Okay.
refocus on that going forward.
Well, again,
okay?
there's a balance of open
not
space you
hearing.
want too, because for every open space property that you buy, we lose assessable tax value.
You get double banged.
Although a lot of times the tax rate's extremely low when it's open space, right?
The tax rate itself for open space is low, but I'm saying we're losing money coming in from the person that owned that property. We're not getting his tax dollars anymore.
Yeah.
And what you have to remember in this town is 64 cents of every dollar in taxes you pay goes to the school board.
Yep.
The municipal tax rate has stayed 18 cents for the last 7 years.
I know.
I think it's actually under that, 17 something,
Yeah,
right?
it's a fraction.
It's
under
not even 18.
but-
Yeah. Sam, this is not
But
at all.
again, every property that we take off the rolls, if we buy it and use it for a field, or open space or whatever, it's coming off the tax rolls and we're losing that money.
What's the, we don't have to get in details, but the tax rates are low, right? For those types of fields sometimes, those types
It
of
depends
properties?
if depends what
it's-
it's assessed at, Dean.
I know that, right, but I've seen some of them that tax rates are extremely low. I know
Well,
that for a fact.
for farmers, yes, if it's a farm property, farmers get a farm assessment.
Right, yep,
And basically, it's pennies on the dollar.
yeah.
But they're also required each year to give a report to the tax assessor to make sure that they still qualify as a farm assessed property. Once they lose that, it goes up to full market value.
Yeah. I get it, I know.
The other thing is, I think this discussion started with this payment for this field. And two things I just want to clarify. So yes, the payment on here is not just for change orders, it's for change orders as well as the second payment, correct?
Yes. Second change, fifth payment.
Second change, fifth payment. So it's not that we're spending X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars on changes, it's that we put in some changes in addition to, which Sam said he would get back to you with the exact details. It's also the fifth payment. So I just want the public to understand, we're not spending X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars on change orders. What the money that's represented here is change orders and the fifth payment.
But I think I mean, if we can turn the discussion back to where it originally started, which was the concern that I think I have and that I think other members of the public would have, is that, there was a time that when the plan was initially introduced, the public and the members of this body had every expectation that the figure presented was sufficient to cover the cost of the plans that were
figure?
presented at the time.
What was the
And
original
so,
figure?
to me, in my mind, the way I would analyze that, the more change orders that you have for any given plan, it leads to me to believe that there was less likelihood that that plan was actually sufficient. Because if it was, you wouldn't have a bunch of change orders, right? The plan would have contemplated the circumstances under which you are now requiring us to come up with an additional $145,000. And so, and this also leads to somewhat of a transparent argument, which is the public at the time thought it was going to be $2.1 million, and they were willing to probably bear that expense for the project. But if we start having cost creep, right, and we have change order after change order, and that happens little by little by little, and the public is not all that aware, and they don't have a calculator and say, wait a minute, what you told us a year ago was 2.1, now it's $4 million.
It's not
Had-
$400.
That is an illustrative example, not specific. The point is, get it right the first time. That's the point. When a plan is presented to this body, we should have every assurance that that plan has contemplated, certain circumstances, so we don't have to come up and keep doing change order after change order. That's all I'm saying, and I hope in the future we do have a new engineer coming on board. I'm very confident in their capabilities, and I'm confident that when he presents a plan, he will also contemplate the cost involved, and so that we won't have change order after change order. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on Resolution 9-5?
No, I'd like to make a motion that we table 9-5 till we receive more information on the change order, the details of it.
The motion is made. Is there a second to table Resolution 9-5?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Is there any discussion about tabling Resolution 9-5?
I think we need to be mindful of timetable, because if the recreation department or anyone else is planning on getting these fields up and running for the September season, which starts in August, I think before we put this off, we should be mindful of, is putting this off for another few weeks going to cause a problem with
Well, let's be,
getting the fields ready?
Well,
No,
that
yeah,
assumes
and
that the contractor would stop working because its $145,000 payment is in limbo. So we would simply, that part would be cut out, and, he would get still a substantial payment that is not covered by the change order, while that gets siphoned off to the side. And I would think that having been, worked with the town for years and years, that the contractor wouldn't stop work by virtue of just a question about the change order.
so, but let me ask this, if this was an engineering mistake or something that was discovered during construction, are we gonna simply say, well, sorry, we're not gonna pay you now? I mean, is the
We're
end
not
result
making
that we're
that
not gonna pay?
We don't have sufficient information to make that decision at this point. I think what Mr. Blumetti is getting at is, why did this happen? Could it have been contemplated, in the original plan? Was there some deficiency in the plan? And we're not saying we're not going to, we're just carving out the 145. We're not stopping payment on the project. We're just carving out the 145. Is that right?
But
Okay.
if he tables it, that's all of it, right?
That's a change order.
Both items are in the same
Both
resolution.
items are in the same thing, so if you carve it out, you are holding up the entire payment.
Then just simply do a resolution that subtracts 145,050.63 from 714,580.66 and do a resolution for that.
Okay, so the resolution right now is to table the 9-5.
At this point too, though, it has already been signed off and certified as to the amount and the change order by the township engineer,
By Ed Hack.
by Ed Hack.
But that seems
The work's been done.
backwards. I mean, if we haven't approved it, I think maybe the solution is to reword or make a different resolution, cancel this one, make the resolution only for payment number 5, and then we get more information on the change order and talk about it next time.
Okay, so the first, do we have a motion on the table? It's been seconded to table Resolution 9-5
Okay,
before we entertain any more change.
I'll withdraw that,
The first and the second must withdraw the.
Okay.
the first
Deputy
motion.
Mayor Clark, are you going to withdraw your second of that motion?
Contemplating making a motion to amend
Mhm.
Resolution 9-5.
Okay.
Yep, I'll make a motion to amend.
Hang on, we have, Deputy Mayor Clark, are you rescinding your
Yes,
second?
on the condition of the amended motion that Mr. Blumetti
Okay,
will make.
the motion to table is now rescinded. Is there a new motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to 9-5 to amend it so that it excludes change order number 2 and still includes payment number 5 for the White Lake Fields with Tomco Construction.
Thank you. May I have a second on that?
I'll second the motion.
Is there any discussion on amending the resolution as Councilman Blumetti introduced?
I just don't think it resolves anything. I mean, we can still investigate why it happened, but the work's already been certified, so either they sue us or we sue them. But whatever you guys want to do.
My comment is that, as we said, this has already been signed off. In the aggregate, the total amount of the changes is still under 10% of the total cost of the construction. And I feel strongly that we need to pay our bills as they are presented.
Well, it's 227,000, right, with both change orders?
Correct. And the total amount of,
Was 2.1 million?
plus the original engineering cost, which I believe was over $100,000, which is a separate resolution from that $2.18 million. So it's about 10%.
Sam, have you ever done a construction project in town without a change order?
Of this magnitude, yeah.
Not of this magnitude, but again, usually most of those projects were a little better spec'd.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't seen the details or even the change order. We've just seen the resolution.
Okay, any other comments on amending the resolution?
Okay.
Can we have a roll call vote, please, on amending the resolution to exclude the change order? The resolution 9-5 to exclude the change order.
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
No.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
No.
Mayor Chiarello.
No, the resolution change is not passed. May I have a motion now to approve resolution 9-5, or is there any other amendments to resolution 9-5 anybody wants to offer?
I move that we approve Resolution 9-5 as presented.
Second.
May I have a second? Okay. Any other discussion on resolution 9-5? Okay, may I have a roll call vote on resolution 9-5?
Councilman Blumetti,
No.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
No.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, resolution is passed. So let me go back to the expenses now. Will the Deputy Mayor Clark please help us pay our bills?
Sure. I make a motion that we approve bill lists totals by fund dated June 27th, 2023, in the grand total amount of $8,448,584.89.
Thank you. May I have a second? I will second that myself. Any discussion on any of the expenditures for the month? For the
Yes,
period?
I have a question on page 3, check 126956 for $20,000, 460.35. It's to CP Engineers LLC. I would just like to request more background on this. I know that we don't work with them anymore, and And Sam, can you share some more details on this one?
This was work that they had done for the water department on on, I believe, the chlorination project that was ongoing. And since then, we have no longer retained their services.
Okay, thank you. That was last year or this year, Sam?
It carried over from last year, and they had to do the final on it this year.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions on the expenditures? Okay, all those in favor of approving the expenditures, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Abstain.
Please note for the record that Council Mobility abstained. I think we wanted to create a break after 2 hours in case anybody needs to stretch. So I would like to take a 5-minute recess at this time before we proceed. May I have a motion to go into recess for 5 minutes?
I make a motion, we do a 5-minute recess.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. All those in favor of going into recess for 5 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? All right, we'll take a 5-minute break. Thank you. At 9:31. 9:48, may I go back into public session? May I have a motion to go back into public session? Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And all those in favor of going back into public session, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are now into public session. We have 4 ordinances on our agenda that are all up for an introduction. Again, there is no discussion or debate on ordinances that are being introduced. The debate and discussion happens at the hearing, which will occur at the next meeting. So will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 23-12?
Authorization of the acquisition of certain real property located in Sparta Township, Lionsgate.
Thank you. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance ordinance 23-12?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Actually, there will be no discussion, so
Non,
you can ask about the introduction of the ordinance, but not about the merits or the
So-
policy?
I'd like to ask I'm not against this at all, whatever, I'm not going to go to policy. Can we have more, a little bit about the context or the background of this coming up?
This is the property down where we just put in the sewer pump station, close to the Wallkill River to remove the line that was under the Wallkill. This will be for a detention pond for drainage. And basically, the developer sold us the piece of property so that we could properly drain that property.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other comments or questions about the introduction of the ordinance? All right, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, the ordinance is introduced. Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 23-13?
An ordinance appropriating the total sum of $2,500,000 from General Capital Improvement Fund for funding various capital improvements or purposes by the Township of Sparta in the County of Sussex, New Jersey.
Thank you. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance 23-13 as read?
Make a motion that we approve ordinance, introduce 2313 as read.
Thank you. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion about the introduction of this ordinance?
So in terms of reasoning for introducing it, can I ask what's the purpose, some of the projects are?
Basically, this is our normal capital ordinance. We raise $3 million worth of capital in the budget each year. 500,000 we bank for rainy day, and 2.5 million is normal capital projects. Approximately 1.2 million of that will be for roads resurfacing repairs. About 400,000 goes to Rex for maintenance of fields and purchase of equipment. Some of it goes to building and grounds. Some of it goes to purchase road department equipment such as dump trucks and backhoes and stuff like that.
Is the painting of the water tower included in that?
That'll be in the next ordinance, which is the 500,000 for the water department.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions about the introduction of ordinance 23-13? Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please, to introduce 23-13?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, the ordinance is introduced. Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 23-14?
An ordinance appropriating the total sum of $500,000 from Water Capital Improvement Fund for funding various water capital improvements or purposes by the Township of Sparta in the County of Sussex, New Jersey.
Thank you. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance 23-14 as read?
I'll make a motion to introduce 2314 as read.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any comments about the introduction of the ordinance, not the merits? Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please, on the introduction of ordinance 23-14?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, the ordinance is introduced. Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 23-15?
An ordinance of the mayor and council of the Township of Sparta amending Chapter 18 entitled Comprehensive Land Code to amend the definitions under Section 18.2 and to amend portions of Section 18-4.31A entitled Planned Commercial Economic Development Zone, PCED.
Thank you. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance 23-15 as read?
I move that we introduce ordinance 23-15 as read.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any comments about the introduction of this ordinance, not the merits? We did have a presentation earlier today, and we will get into more detail at the next meeting. Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please, to introduce ordinance 23-15?
Councilman Lumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
No.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, the ordinance is introduced. We have no ordinances up for a hearing. At this time, I would like to open it up to the public for any comments or questions on any of the resolutions 9-1 through 9-7, but not 9-5, because I think we adjudicated that. Hearing none, I'll turn to the council. Are there any questions about resolutions 9-1 through 9-7, excluding 9-5, or are there any that you want to carve out for a separate vote?
I have just a question on 9-6.
Sure.
This is about a grant, which grants are always good, so I'm definitely not opposing this. I just would like to know what it's for. And when I read this, it reminded me of, it said Main Street Improvement Projects. And as we know, right now, there's the New Jersey State Plan endorsement work that started last year, and it's underway again with the planning board and includes some residents for the town center area. Just wanted to know how this, if or how this might tie into that.
This basically is applying for a grant from the state of New Jersey for the improvements of Main Street. Each year we get, there's a long list that the engineer has of roadways that we can seek DOT funding for, and Main Street is the one for this year. So this is just the application process. We probably won't get the awards until much later in the year. They'll let us know probably, and it will be a project that'll actually be done like next year.
Okay. So am I correct? This is more for maintenance, upkeep, those types of projects, or is it more for the future vision?
This is for road overlay and repairs to drainage
Ah.
and whatever else you need on any certain roads.
Okay.
Usually we get a,
Sidewalks, bricks.
Could it ever be?
we get an NJDOT grant each year, and we've used it on several roads over the last 5 or 6 years.
Could we ever use that grant money or get enough grant money to possibly put utilities underground on Main Street?
That would be probably a different thing. This is usually, the DOT grant is usually just for resurfacing or improvements to, I've seen them also use it for like realignment of roads and stuff like that possibly, but
It's also being used for sidewalks, bricks, pavers, and all of that.
Part of the complexity of putting things underground is that electrical lines get hot underground and they have to be cooled, and it's actually very expensive. That's had with a wife whose father used to work for the electric company.
I just know,
Yeah.
and as the neighborhoods were developed in Sparta, at some point they started putting all the
Some of them,
utilities
the newer
underground.
ones, yeah. Okay, any other questions about any of the resolutions 9-1 through 9-5 excluding, I'm sorry, 9-7 excluding 9-5? Or anybody want me to carve out? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve resolutions 9-1 through 9-4, 9-6, and 9-7?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Okay, resolutions 9-1 through 9-4, 9-6, and 9-7 have been approved. For council liaison updates, I will start with Councilman Blumetti.
Just two quick points for Environmental Commission from the last meeting. The commission reviewed Planning Board Application 699, which is at 401 Houses Corner Road. Also, as mentioned earlier, there is ongoing discussions and plans about the formation of an open space committee. That's it. Thank you.
Excellent. Deputy Mayor Clark.
No updates.
Councilman Hertzberg.
I'm gonna let Chris go ahead and speak to the senior committee.
Okay. Councilwoman Quinn?
So first and foremost, the Senior Advisory Committee met. I'm going to speak to a really unbelievable trip we had to the Sparta Community Food Pantry. So I'm gonna preface that in a minute. But our meeting for the Senior Advisory Committee this month was in following up with all of the topics I've been bringing up here and bringing back to the council around food insecurities with our senior community. It spilled out into food insecurities throughout our community. And so we had a beautiful tour. We got a lot of great information from Patty and Margie and some of the people that volunteer a significant amount of their time there. There's a couple things that I want to bring forward about this, and there's a couple things I'm going to be asking of this council, of you guys as my colleagues and as leaders in this community to consider moving forward. So I've heard a lot, and we've been having a lot of meetings about a lot of different places where residents, not only in Sparta, but in Sussex County, can go if they have food insecurity, if they're not sure where their next meal is coming from. And I don't want to sit here and profess to be an expert in this, so I'm going to reiterate to the best of my ability how I understand things. There are different organizations throughout the county that provide different levels of service for residents depending on their need, depending on what they can demonstrate their income to be, or if they are falling into what qualifies for state aid. So some organizations run by state aid, meaning you have to register, you have to give documentation, you have to qualify for it. Some are need-based, but you need to prove that you have a certain level of income before you can get to them. I have to say, I was blown away by what I saw at the Sparta Community Food Bank. And I will tell you this, I've lived here for a long time. This organization has been around for a long time. It started out of the Presbyterian Church in Sparta, and most people knew it as a place to, around the holidays and all these different things, bring food and whatever. It outgrew that, and it is now in its own space, 99 Demarest Road, where it has a full functioning back end with freezers, storage, the whole 9 yards, and it also has a store in the front. And I have to say, the remarkable thing about this, well, there's a lot of remarkable things about this. This is open 5 or 6 days a week. There's a store in the front that any resident can come to. They don't have to show anything. So for the people out there that are working 2 jobs and making what the state, making more than what the state would say they should be making but they can't bridge the gap and they're forced with facing not being able to feed their families, people can go here once a week and they can actually go shopping. They can get bags of food and bring them home. No stigma, no questions asked, no paperwork, no nothing. This whole thing is run by volunteers, some of which who are volunteering over 30 hours a week of their time. Now, this is a thing that really blew me away. It is called the Sparta Community Food Bank, and its name does not do it justice, because actually what this is, in my opinion, is the community food bank at Sparta. I've had numerous meetings with different people in the county, different organizations, and then followed up lastly with the food pantry. They service 2,200 families every month. 2,200. That's not people. That's families. Every one of those families has members, right? In addition to that, they offer programs where they will deliver to people who may be shut-ins or destitute or can't get out. They service 400 homeless people. Margie, am I getting my numbers right? Keep me honest here. 400 homeless people. They have people coming in on weekends and nights to bring food. They have organizations that are making hundreds of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and different sandwiches. They have other people that are going around and partnering with different businesses to pick up things that are still good but aren't going to be sold and to get that out to people. So just this whole entire past couple of months and everything learning from starting this out, talking about food insecurities for seniors, and then this learning about, and saying, hey, this is not just seniors, it's families, and then doing all this investigation and spending a lot of hours, and then going to the pantry, I started asking questions about the funding model. How do you work? How do you operate? You're servicing all these people. You have this overhead of this big space now that you moved into. And the woman that we spoke to there said, it's all private donations. And I said, what? Private donations? I said, is this facility donated to you? No, we pay rent. I said, do you pay utilities? Yes, we pay utilities. I said, you service 24 municipalities. Do any of the municipalities contribute money to you on an ongoing basis? You're feeding all of our communities. This is not the Sparta community feeding the Sparta community. This is a community bank in Sparta feeding not only Sparta, like in Sussex County. I think they're also told me that they have some places in Blairstown that they service as well. So my ask, and I am bringing this up, I've already brought it up to the leadership team of the Sussex County League of Municipalities. We're going to be adding a working session around this because we're bringing this to them too. I really feel strongly that every municipality, or at least we could start with our municipality, needs to say, you know what, we respect this work. This is important to our community. It's keeping our members in our community fed and taking away this food insecurities. And I think we should pledge a little bit of money every year or every, whatever that amount is going to be, because they don't know where their next donations are coming from. So if they're private benefactors, something happens and they don't give, they don't get. So I would like you guys to all think about, and Sam, maybe we can have a conversation about this. I would like us to take, and I'm not saying it has to be an enormous amount of money, but I think we should all be doing our fair share to support the efforts that are going on that a lot of us don't even realize are happening right in our own community, for our own community.
I totally agree.
Thank you.
Totally agree.
So that's my ask. I'm going to be coming back. Well, Sam, maybe we can have a conversation about money, and then however we have to get that done. I just think it needs to be done so that they know it's coming. And again, we're bringing this message out to all the other the other municipalities as well, to try to raise awareness and get them to contribute to these efforts also.
Do you know who owns the structure?
Excuse me?
Who owns the structure? Okay. And you pay rent at Deacon Homes?
So that is my update when it comes to the senior advisory. Also, I brought that up under the senior advisory only because that was where this all happened this time. But a couple other things
If we can
really
pause there for a
exciting.
minute, if it's okay.
What?
Can you pause there for a minute?
What?
Can you pause there
Oh,
for a minute?
yes,
Sorry.
yes.
So I know there are, and believe me, you had me at Community Pantry. I had tenants that many of them did not have money to pay the rent, which was hard for me, but they also didn't have money to buy food, and it just rips your heart out sometimes, especially those with children. I know there are issues that we have to work through with forced charity, and we have to. There's ways. I'm sure we can get creative to do that, but I think the next step is to try to figure out what those ways are. And I don't know. I don't know what the financial implications are or legal implications or just donating a check to charity, but I think there are ways so we can get creative. That's all I'll offer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it can't be unusual for there to be public and private cooperation, right? I mean, obviously, food insecurity, housing insecurity is sort of a fundamental issue that a town should be very interested in. And I think it behooves us to come up with ways to, help offset the cost if we can. And I applaud your work, Chris, in leading that. I think that's, there can't be, a more pressing issue than if we have people in our county who, go to bed hungry at night. And, we want to make sure there's services so that doesn't happen. I mean, in an area of such affluence, that shouldn't happen. And, we can debate all the, policies or, economic injustice, et cetera, that may have caused that we have people in such an affluent, place as the United States who still go hungry. But I think, that doesn't really advance anything. There's no sense arguing about that. I think that it kind of behooves us, as Chris has shown, to figure out a way to help these, and so people don't go hungry at night.
So
Thank you.
can we have that as a takeaway then? I guess the manager come back with a brainstorming, here's some options and we can look at those options.
I would also like us to talk about, I'm not sure how this would work either, but I know we have a grant. We work with a grant company, and I would like us to reach out to them to let us know if there are ways that we can maybe help secure grant monies, additional grant monies as well for this initiative. Now, there are a lot of different initiatives, so there's two things. So, Neil, I appreciate you thanking me, but really, you should thank the people that are in all these
Thank you, Marjorie.
organizations and doing all this, because it's yeoman's work, and it's amazing, and it's thankless, and it's a lot of hours. But the other thing is, there are a lot of organizations around Sussex County that do different things, as I mentioned. Some are run by the state, there's different programs. We're lucky to have them. We probably can't go to that degree of help for those that are even outside of our municipalities. So I would like to see us try to work more. Maybe we could reach out to the grant writers, figure out if there's a way for them to be able to support feeding our community. And maybe if there's additional grants that we can secure to that end, that we could then do pass-throughs to the pantry, the community pantry. So that's another thing. So in addition to money's great, but we can do money, but maybe there's other money that we can do as well through grants. So that was my second ask there. Two asks, actual money, and then grant opportunities to help use Millennium Strategies to find the stuff. The other thing is, we should all congratulate our seniors. They had their Senior Olympics. It was not a great day, but I was able to get up there, and I always love that event. I love the attitude and the camaraderie. It's wonderful. Our seniors took home the bronze. We should all be very proud, and it was really a great day for everybody. So I want to thank the rec department. I want to thank the NJRPA for putting this together. It's a collective. They actually had it hosted at Wheatsworth Field this year. So great job with the seniors. And also something else from the Senior Advisory Committee, or the Rec Committee, Jean Montebrano, our Director of Parks and Rec, was sworn in as the President of the NJRPA. So I think that's a big deal. And I wanted to make sure that we congratulated her on that. It's a big deal. It's a great organization, and she's now the president of it. Also from the Salute 07871, I had the pleasure of bringing to Sam's office, which always makes Sam happy, money. So we brought in a check for the banners, just under $2,000 to cover the banners for 2023. So that's done on behalf of Salute 07871. And our next meeting for the Municipal Alliance will be a budget meeting for the June to June for this next school year. So I'll keep you guys posted on that after we discuss it and put it through.
I want to just add, Chris, thank you too for sharing that, and thank you, Margie, for about the community bank. It's food insecurity, as we know, is tied to so many other types of, not just quality of life, but you've probably heard of social determinants of health. So food insecurity affects one's health, it affects one's ability to get a job, it affects housing, it trickles, it's all connected. So it's extremely important. So thank you for doing that. The one idea about the grant writing, I mean, if we have the grant writers on retainer, is there some arrangement we can make to let this food bank borrow or use them to apply for grants during the year, being we're paying for them already? If they have downtime, is there a way to as a professional grant writer, I'm sure could do a lot of good for a place like this.
Well, that's what that's what I want to talk about.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that,
We originally wrote that into the contract. that-
yes.
So
In the contract, it says the school, Lake Mohawk Country Club, and the
was
town.
other
And
organizations
or
within the
other
town as
organizations
directed.
within the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to do that, but I would never do that without bringing it up here first and asking. And the other thing is, I just need to confirm something, so something else from the senior committee. I had told everybody with regard to this food insecurity that marketing was a big thing. We wanted to send something out with the next tax bill. And the question came up, who's going to pay for the copies? So I'm assuming we can cover that cost for the copies? I don't
Senior
think,
committee, yeah, I mean, they're one of our committees.
that's what I'm saying. So as township committee, can I go back to them and say,
Ask that guy.
Sam, we'll pay for the,
Get
we've done it
something-
before for rec.
Get something together, and that'll
Okay.
give us plenty of time. I'll probably have to have them. I found it's cheaper just to go like the Staples and have them print them than try to even do it in-house.
Okay. That's fine. I just, they asked me because we want to get it out. And we're also going to be adding all this information on our website. So that's it for me.
Then we'll have a chance to work with Diane and find out how many we actually need to go to residents.
Okay.
And, nothing would go to,
I'll get back to them tomorrow. Okay.
Anything else?
For liaison updates, nope, that's it.
Thank you.
That's it.
For myself, the only thing I'd mention is that a health committee meeting was not held in June. We'll probably have one in July. We had a planned meeting with the Board of Education that was postponed, was supposed to have been yesterday, so we'll have that also probably in July sometime. And those are my rather uninteresting updates. We have no unfinished business that had been tabled over from a prior meeting. So,
I do have something for unfinished business.
okay, go ahead.
I just thought that's where you wanted to do these things, so I
Sure, go
wanted
ahead.
to nominate some people for the business development, since we had, as many as we have, but
We have 5, right?
we have
4 or
5.
Yep.
Dumper, Volpe, McKernan, Pasalacqua, and Rosenfeld. So I'd like to nominate those 5 for the Business Development Committee.
I'll second them. I think
Um,
it's important that you get this committee going.
As a comment, I had contacted the Tap into Sparta to see if we could get some exposure of that committee, because right now we had very few people apply to that committee as well as to the Revolution NJ committee. I'm not putting pressure on you, but at some point, I did that day, actually. Okay. But that's okay. So anyway, I was, in my own mind, I was going to wait until we had a more critical mass of people to nominate. But we can, there's nothing preventing us from having them trickle in later on.
Excuse me, Mayor, can Councilman Hertzberg repeat the names, please?
Sure. Dumpert, Volpe, McKernan, Pasalacqua, and Rosenfeld.
Thank you.
Okay, another comment I had, Feld, was on Mr. Dumpert. I've spoken with Mr. Dumpert several times. I've got no objection to his character or anything. I do have a concern that Mr. Dumpert runs a blog or a Facebook page called something like "What's Going On in Sparta" or something like that, and I'm wondering if that would be appropriate for having someone who would broadcast information from the from this meeting from this committee onto that platform. Is that a concern of anybody else's?
I would think that anybody that speaks out of the committee that'd be grounds for removal of the committee.
That would be my concern, and because he has a platform that does that, that gave me a little bit pause.
I have that concern too.
I wouldn't want to pre-remove somebody for something that we're thinking they might do, but I would certainly be, I mean, as I said, I'm very cognizant of keeping those private conversations private,
That's my
especially around
concern.
businesses. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to pre-convict him of a crime he hasn't committed, but I certainly would be up to removing anybody who speaks out of school.
And remind me how many positions are allowed under this?
I don't think we had a limit,
I think it was,
or was a high limit.
there was no floor, but I think we had
12?
12, 12 is the number that I remember.
And actually, what we did was we commingled the business owners and residents. That's, yeah.
We did
But it was
designate.
12, I think it was.
Okay.
Are these business owners or all no business owners?
I know McKernan is a
no.
business owner.
McKernan is,
Rosenfeld is a business owner.
Rosenfeld and
Does
Paslakwa.
Rosenfeld own a business?
Yes,
He does?
yeah. I won't say in here, but I know he is.
I think several of them are business owners. Yes.
And did we have an allocation to business owners, or was it?
We
mean,
didn't set a number. We
yeah.
said, because we didn't know what we were gonna get.
Okay,
we were gonna.
so we, I just, I think, my only concern is that we're gonna fill up on the business owners, and, we could get another application for, other
Well, I
business.
mean-
But if we don't have a limit, then it doesn't really matter.
Well, I have
But
to
we do,
say,
it
too,
was 12 is our
I
limit.
just have to
12 is the
say-
limit, but we don't have an allocation limit.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I have to say also, you cannot sign up to be on a committee unless you're a resident of Sparta. So by default, even if you're a
I-
business owner,
I think a business owner, you're allowed to have a business in Sparta, but
Yeah.
not be a resident. I don't think you need to be a resident to be a
But
business owner.
in
At
this,
least that was the past,
to
wasn't it?
be on a committee,
I-
don't you have to,
Yeah, I think that's what we talked about, a resident business owner, and then plain residents that aren't business owners.
Yeah.
I don't think we
Yeah, well,
contemplated.
So what I'm saying is,
Josh, you would
Brian
mind.
Dunford, for example, if he doesn't own a business, he would be a member of, he would not be a
resident.
business owner, he would be a resident volunteer, correct?
Yeah, I mean, all the people that, so far that I've seen that have put in a residence of Sparta, regardless of, their business owners in Sparta also. I mean, that's a,
But I believe in the past, we had business owners that were not residents on that committee.
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
I think everybody was a resident.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I would not be opposed to a non-resident business owner, because obviously they have an interest in Sparta.
They have a domiciled business in Sparta.
Right.
Yeah, and so.
I wouldn't be opposed to that either.
Yeah, and, theoretically, the whole reason for having this committee is to actually attract businesses and to sustain it. And someone who lives outside the area would probably have a good, views on how, why did he decide or she decide to locate in Sparta as opposed to where they reside? So, I mean, as long as we're not, so I think, I'm now saying that it's going to be important, I think, to have a non-resident business owner on here, and I just don't want to fill up without having that opportunity.
Well, we got 12, we're putting
we're
on
still
5,
with
so,
these
I mean,
7.
we're under half, so,
And-
and not for nothing, and so it's almost July, and we have nothing.
Yeah,
So
no,
I think it's not fair to keep making it wait and wait until we get to some number.
At least
And
if I
it's
can
probably
get,
not gonna be
No.
till September anyway, until something gets, but at least you can start.
at least if I can get some people on, then maybe we can start recruiting, or at least, those people, if they're in the business community, they'll know other business owners that maybe they can recruit.
Okay.
Yeah,
Any-
and I think there was, there were people who applied for this committee prior to the, us discussing the reconstitution of it. Are those people still being considered? I know for one, I thought we had a gentleman apply before we reconstituted this, and so,
I think if you have an application,
That was
we hold
Pat
it for 2
McKernan.
years.
okay.
Wasn't it, Dan?
And it might have been
That
Pat
was Pat
McKernan, yes.
McKernan, who we're saying we
Yeah.
want to put on.
Because I know, I have someone in particular that I know applied previously,
Is their
and,
name on the list?
If that person has submitted an application within the past 2 years, then you can nominate that person as well.
okay. Well, I
You
I
wanna
need to
reach out
check with him,
first,
yeah,
yeah.
because, circumstances may have changed for him, but I'll just bring that up at the next meeting. I'll do kind of what Josh is doing now. If that person's interested, I'll just make a motion that they be added, but I want to confirm with them that they're still interested.
Okay. So we can start with these, we
Do we
can
know
seed
if
it with
there's-
these 5.
Yep, do we know if there's others who applied for sure that are not on this list tonight?
Well, anyone who put in any
Yeah,
kind of
this is-
application at all, which is you have to go through the process online, is represented in the Excel spreadsheets and the online form that we have in our file.
Yeah, I'm just taking them off of the
So
ones that were
there's
posted.
nothing, that's where these names
Oh, I
came
got you.
from.
Yeah.
So if if someone said they wanted to do something, but their name is not represented in any of these Excels, chances are they probably just didn't go out and fill out a form. But the form is a requirement to have based on our guidelines before you can be placed on a committee.
Okay, so we're still open. We still have 7
Right.
after the spots open and up for others, and we can look back for 2 years for applications, and you can solicit additional applications, as we said. So are there any other comments on the 5 individuals that were nominated and seconded? I believe they were seconded, right?
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
a second, we have a motion and a second.
Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor of adding the 5 people named were Dumpert, Volpe, McKernan, Pasalacqua, and Rosenfeld. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Okay, so Clerk, I think you have those 5 names, and you can get them from and the addresses from the contact information, right? Okay, excellent, thank you. Moving on to new business. So
I have a piece of old business as well.
Okay, so we did this a couple of meetings ago. We sort of because it was hard to distinguish new business from old business, we kind of merged them into new business. Unfinished business on the agenda was going to be reserved for anything that was tabled prior to this and then brought forward. So anyway, new, old, go ahead.
Well, wait, I think of unfinished business as stuff that could have happened at any time up to today that's not done.
Okay.
And then new business as being stuff that's new that we're bringing here today.
Okay, when I went back to Robert's rules, that was their definition of unfinished business, was things that were tabled in prior meetings. I mean, it's a fine point, it doesn't.
I think I didn't.
So then
completely
where do you
understand
bring
this,
up
and that
old
makes-
stuff? Where do you
Well,
bring up?
so-
New business,
under-
new business, old business.
Yeah, maybe we should just call it business.
Business.
Okay.
So let's start with, Councilman, do you have any business?
I have some business. It's actually a follow-up from a discussion last meeting, and I think someone in the public asked about this as well. The status of the sanitary sewer feasibility study that was done over out by the aquifer area. Do we know any more information yet on where the draft is, if it's complete? Do we pay the vendor in full? Has anyone up here ever seen?
Been trying to
A copy
track
of
it
this?
down. Tried with the prior engineer. Unfortunately, Mr. Hack had never seen a copy of it. I don't think Mr. Zepp has ever seen a copy of it. So I'm trying to track it down to see where it actually went.
I think it's important to look at that and have that discussion because I think it directly relates to the ordinance change out there.
Yep. But we do have the
Because,
vendor,
yeah,
we could
like
probably get to the
Dan,
vendor.
Josh, Chris, Sam, have you guys ever seen this? Like a copy of it ever?
We approved it getting done,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen the results of it now.
but
Yeah,
I don't ever remember seeing a finished result.
Was there a draft? I heard
Yeah.
words of a draft floating around.
Yeah, but I don't think it ever was finalized. I don't think we ever got a final report.
Or that report was denied because it was a draft.
And not
Had been
finalized.
accepted by the council. So it's there as a draft somewhere.
Yeah, so I have not,
Sam, if you could just try and follow up.
yeah. Maybe we could track it back by PO.
well, we have the vendor.
We just go back
Yeah.
to the vendor.
Yeah,
and
I
ask
mean,
for a
that's-
copy?
Vendor, but I'm just saying,
Yeah,
Yeah, my recommendation, living the life of having to get documents from people who don't want to turn them over or you can't find them, you just go back to the original source. So I would recommend calling whoever the vendor is who prepared the report. I would assume they would still have a copy of it, and just ask for the copy that they submitted to us.
Okay. Any other business?
More biz.
Thank you.
Is this-
New and used,
New-
new and old business,
Is this
just
every
business.
business?
any business,
Just
Any
business.
business?
whatever your business.
I got business.
Councilman Quinn.
this is-
Councilwoman Quinn.
Old, unfinished, new business. So a while back, when we installed, if you guys will bring your brains to the front of the First Presbyterian Church in Sparta, there is a light system there so that people can cross the street safely because the parking's on the other side. At the time when we installed that, I believe we got a grant to do that installation.
Yeah.
We identified a second space where we really needed one of those, And it is a push button, and then it's a light in the street. And that was at the facility right in front of Wells Fargo Bank, which is on Sparta Avenue, because you have a lot of people going back and forth between either the bank, Burger King, now you have Wagamore there, the bakery, Cafe Perot, and there's a lot of people that walk around there. This came up again at the Senior Advisory Committee, again, the other day, because we never installed that. So I want to bring it forward again as a big safety concern and something that we did agree we were going to do a while back. I think then COVID happened and we just never got around to it. But I do think in the interest of public safety, we need to relook at it again. And I think we need to do something about that intersection. That's a very busy road, and we also have kids that are going back and forth between Burger King and the field, so in between games and things of that nature. So I would like to see us get that rescheduled and move forward with making that safer.
Maybe with that grant we just talked about in 9-6.
Chris, would you mind? Sorry, I wasn't listening or distracted. The first part of what you said, where, I know where it is. What is this for? What
First
would it be for?
Presbyterian
Yeah.
Church of Sparta
Yeah.
has a system, so there's a light that blinks, and there's a button that you push
We
when
have
you
one
want to
out front
cross
here
the
too,
street
as
for
well.
safe traverse.
Oh, a crosswalk.
We have one
Okay.
here too.
Yeah.
Right, but it's not just a crosswalk, it's got lights and you can push it and all that. So there's one here, there's one at the First Presbyterian Church. We identified the third space, which was to go over in front of the Wells Fargo Bank on Sparta Avenue. I think it was at Lewis Lane is the name of the road. Is that right, Lewis Lane? So it's where Lewis Lane is across the street from Wells Fargo. And there is a big crosswalk there that is dangerous. It's used often, especially during the summer months when there's a lot of things going on at the field and people are going back and forth. And we identified that as the third space, but then COVID happened and all these things happened and we never got back to it. So the seniors brought it up again because they like walking in the morning hours and going back and forth. And they reminded me of the fact that we never got that done. So I'd like to see that coming back in underneath the prowess of community safety. And also, I want to bring to everybody's attention that there is a program, there's a lot going on right now around fraud, around deeds and mortgages and things like that. And I don't, again, profess to be some kind of expert, but I will tell you this, the Sussex County Clerk's Office is offering free protections that you can sign up for online on their website to protect your deed. So if any change is made to your deed in the clerk's office, you will receive notification. And I highly recommend anyone and everyone to go out, because apparently what I'm learning about this is that you might not even understand or realize, but somebody can go in and fraudulently take your deed, and all of a sudden you don't own your house. So it's a reality, it's a free service. You can go in, and if you've been married before, like in the case of a woman and you have a married name, you can actually enter in like 3 or 4 names. So you can use your maiden name, your married name. If you were remarried, you could put that name in there. So I highly recommend everyone to go out to the county clerk's website, take a look at it, and see if it's something that can benefit you. So,
Can I make a suggestion? Is there a way we can get that on our website as like a tip or a news for residents?
yeah, I mean, we could put something
A little
together and
link.
just link to it,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yep. So, so there's that. And then we're still on new, old, right? Just all of it? All right. So the Exxon property is a mess again, and now there's graffiti just for an added touch. It's been a mess for a long time. I know we've tried to clean it up, but I want to bring it up again. If we can get someone in land use or somebody to go over there, I know it's corporate owned, I know whatever, but it's an eyesore, and the Sparta Diner is reopened. So welcome to the Sparta Diner, welcome back.
Don't we have an ordinance that requires
Yes.
certain things to be kept up to a certain standard?
Yes.
Well, we need to file.
And when I looked at it, apparently they've been served numerous things and it just seems to be falling on deaf ears. So I don't know, we need to up our game or whatever, but it's a mess and they need to clean it up. They need to pull it together. Also, I want to just extend a warm congratulations to the 2023 graduating class of Sparta High School, Pope John, and Sussex Votech. Everybody graduated. We wish them all the best and in all of their new endeavors. And let's see. And also just want to wish Ed Hack and Deb Card all the best, and also Patty Brown. They've been really great servants to and employees of this township and during very, very difficult times, and their loss will be felt huge. And I just want to take a minute to thank all three of them for their commitment, dedication, and service to the township. So that's it from my side.
Excellent, thanks. Councilman Hertzberg, any business?
Yes, I have a few things. One, I want to bring up, I know there's been a lot of discussion about the master plan, but our actual copy of the master plan has gone missing, to the point where the zoning department had to file a police report. So it was removed from where it's supposed to be, yes.
Wow.
So the
they are
master
they are
plan is
currently-
missing?
Yes, so,
And there's a police report.
and it's currently being investigated.
Oh, my God.
So, that's a little odd and a little concerning.
Stealing the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah. So the other thing is, one of the things that the youth sports programs have been asking for years, and it's been a huge problem. In Sparta, we don't really control the youth sports programs. They run their own organizations. They do us a service by getting volunteers to basically run nonprofit organizations so our kids have places to play sports. They only ask that we provide decent facilities for them, which obviously we approved some pretty nice facilities tonight. But one of the things they don't have is anywhere to store all the equipment. And year after year, they lose equipment because bad storage facilities, you get mice in there, you get all kinds of issues. And it's the residents that end up having to pay that through additional fees and having all that equipment replaced. And they continued to ask for something to be built. I mean, we've got probably 7 or 8 different organizations that have millions of dollars worth of equipment. And, I know me and Jean had talked about it. She was gonna try and put it in her budget to get some kind of storage facility built that they could just keep all this stuff in. I mean, we're talking about a metal building with rack wiring, nothing crazy, but, I know one of the guys in football has 40 boxes of helmets in his garage. Can't, him and his wife can't use his garage right now because that's where they're storing the helmets. And these are all, so it's just something that, I don't know if it was in her budget, specifically, but it's something that needs to be taken care of because it's costing the residents a lot of money in these fees.
That sounds like something you would put a plan together, like every athletic area or field should have, or complex should have its own storage area, and so you would have a plan.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that.
You're not going to
different-
drive over to White Lake if you're playing on, Ungerman Field
No,
or
this is
something.
equipment that the kids keep, right? So usually these sports programs will do equipment handout in the beginning of a season. Kids get their equipment, they keep it for the whole year. So it's somewhere to keep it in the off seasons. It's not a little shed at this field and
So
a
it
little
could
shed
be
at that
somewhere,
field.
yeah.
It could be one facility big enough that all the sports programs keep their stuff there, and then they use it for the season.
What is the little blue building at the, at Ungerman Field there? Isn't this thing stored
He's talking
there?
about the Fisher
Oh,
Building.
So,
Fisher Building, yeah.
It
so
was
just-
great.
Just to give you a little history, so,
I used to have meetings in there for something.
Yeah,
yeah,
we all
football used
did.
to use it. They used to have their meetings there. They used to have training for the kids, and then
Now it's got rats.
the
Just
rec,
tell me.
the rec department took it over, used it as storage, and they were keeping candy and all kinds of other stuff, and the mice and the rats and the squirrels got in, and it's destroyed. So it's not even usable. It's not big enough for all the sports either. It was barely big enough for one sport. But if, I'd like to work
the
with the rec department and the programs to put a plan together to submit to council.
Yeah, I think that's, that
Amen.
seems to make the most sense, is to the rec department in conjunction with these sports outfits would decide, come together with a plan about what size you need, how you would, allocate it to, I know we have lacrosse, we have football, we have soccer. So I think the rec department does a great job. And so I think working in conjunction with our sports teams, they should come up with that, and we'll see how much it costs and then try to put it in the budget.
I'll work on that. Last thing is something that I brought up several times and something the residents continue to bring up. These drug rehabilitation homes that are in the neighborhoods that are operating outside of our zoning laws, that we had put together a plan to file subpoenas to get the time of how long they've operated in these neighborhoods, how long they've been violating the zoning laws, to file against these organizations that are operating businesses in our neighborhoods, because now the business has been sold. The promises that were made to remove them and put them in other places have not been done. And they continue just to basically laugh in our faces, and these neighbors are just getting fed up, and there's just, I mean, I get calls, I get pictures sent, there's problems that continue to happen, and it's not fair to people living in these neighborhoods, these kids who continue to deal with these issues when, you know, we know the solution, we're just not doing it. And I think, you know, we've lost some employees who were involved in that, so I think we just need another sit-down to get the plan put back in place and executed.
Yeah, and I would agree with Josh on that, and if, you know, let's use all legally viable means to, you know, correct the situation. And I'm happy as a, you know, a person that's in recovery, I'm happy to, you know, be a liaison with that. And people know that it's not about being anti-recovery, it's about, you know, protecting our town.
Not at all, and we said that, you know, if these were in mixed-use zones where businesses and residents were allowed to operate, that'd be a different story, but these are in resident-only zones in our town. And, you know, it's just too many people in one house with too many cars, with too many garbage cans, and it's just everything that it shouldn't be. So, and the plan that we put in place was based on our meeting with the state and with the state who regulates it and what the rules are. And that's how we put the plan in place, so it would be legally upheld based on case law that's already happened in New Jersey. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
So don't be mad, can I just add two more things?
Go for it.
Sorry.
More business.
My notes are a lot and it got lost. So we're having our very first open mic night at Dykstra Park, very exciting for Sparta Talent this Thursday night. Thank God, I mean, hopefully we won't have thunder, lightning, rain, whatever. I hope we have a nice, because it's the first time we're ever doing it. So I would encourage anyone who wants to come down for a fun night of local talent down at Dykstra to join us down there. This is
When is the night? When is it again?
open mic,
Yeah, when? What
Thursday
day?
night.
Thursday.
And I want to thank George Segal, who's one of the newest members of our Rec Advisory Committee, for taking on the task of coordinating it, and the Rec Advisory Committee for the idea, and our Rec Department for supporting it. The other thing is, in the interest, again, of public safety, we need to do something, I feel, to at least reach out to some of our carriers, Verizon, T-Mobile. I know they're renting space on our water towers. I know they rent space in town. But it's becoming more and more apparent that, I mean, we kind of laugh about it, but it's not funny. If it's a cloudy day in certain neighborhoods, you literally have to stand on the right corner of your porch to maybe get a signal or get in your car and drive down the street. Here's the problem with all of this. In a catastrophe, if something happens like Sandy again, if something happens like whatever, and power is out, and cable is out, and this and that and the other thing, the only way that we have to communicate with our residents is this. And there's a good chance that this will be the only thing charged. When we saw in Sandy, people were taking their phones, putting in, you know, they didn't have power, they were going in their car and plugging in their phone, and this was the thing they were using. We can communicate with people in an emergency, but this has to work. And the service is not good, and it's not consistent, and we have certain areas in town, it's consistently horrible.
I've actually looked into that because I drop a call every time I drive home. But, you know, from what I've been told, talking to these people, it's just the topography of the town. There are certain places that are, you know, the signals just don't get to unless, you know, people put repeaters in.
But maybe we just need to go back to them and just say, do you need to put another thing on another tower or another, I mean, I know we don't want the place littered with cell towers all over, but the other thing is, in a crisis, this is the thing you turn to, you know? And again, it's, I'm not saying this because we'd all love to have great cell service, but I'm saying it because this really, it's becoming, I think when we have big storms like this, we had tornado warnings yesterday in certain areas that are pretty close to where we are right now. And it just keeps making me think, you know, there's got to be something with 4G, 5G, this G, that G, underground, above ground, all this technology. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to go back to the table and just ask them if there's some kind of improvements that they can offer us? I mean, it can't hurt to ask, right?
I have worked on computer systems that map out optimal places to situate towers and stuff, and I can just say it's very complicated. There's a lot of variables, and it's very hard to get everything perfect because of all the variables. But so anyway, it's a
But
hard
maybe-
problem. Is what I'm
Maybe they
trying to
don't
say.
know. Maybe they forgot, or maybe they have new management, or maybe, I'm trying to be nice here. But I'm just saying, it couldn't hurt for somebody from the township to reach out to them to try to get them to look at it again. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
Now I'll be quiet. That's it. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Clark.
Only business is just to report that I had the honor of speaking at the Sussex Tech award ceremony, and one of the recipients was a young woman who literally her accomplishments went on for 2 pages. And she had, accomplishments ranging and interests ranging from robotics to theater to track athlete, soccer athlete, and it just sort of drove home to me the incredible talent that we have in Sparta. Her father, probably people know, is the proprietor, used to be the proprietor of Tanti Baki. And so in addition to all that she accomplished at school, she also had a part-time job. And so she is most deserving of recognition, and I think it's great that we can, and one of the things that I told her is that, to whom much is given, much is expected, and I think there's a way that we can, harness some of this young talent that we have to be in a kind of servant mindset for their community, because, someone with these accomplishments has a lot to offer, not only, for jobs, but also her community. And that's it.
If I can build on that, as I mentioned earlier, one of our committees that we haven't had a lot of response for now is the Revolution NJ Committee to celebrate our, nation's founding and 250th anniversary. That'd be a great opportunity for especially students of history to get involved and do some digging, come up with some cool things to do in Sparta.
You said Pete Litchfield's going to serve on that as well, right?
Yes, Pete. I asked Pete to because we had a slot open for a VFW person, and he nominated himself.
What about the Historical Society?
And I did reach out to the Historical Society because we have 2 slots open for them, and I have not heard back yet.
Yeah, we've been in email conversations with them.
Oh, you have? Okay, good. Perfect, thanks. So they're on it.
Can I add one
Yeah,
thing?
sure.
I'm sorry. One thing I know we talked about at last meeting, but the AEDs for the different facilities, is that, are we still?
So the path forward for this season was the AEDs were ordered and then they were given out to the organizations. So they're not in the parks, they're given to the organizations for them to distribute out.
But we have enough for every organization to have one at the field.
So for this season, yes, but we need to put an order in. So the first thing was to cover this season. They have to return them at the end. They have to return the AED devices. But we are looking at buying more of them and looking at, because in the fall, we're even going to have more team. It needs to be sustainable.
Well, and all these leagues now have rules where you won't be allowed to host games unless you have one. So we're going to be
Yep.
chasing all our teams to other towns unless we get them.
Well, that's the other problem. The other problem is you can't give one to every team. You know what I mean? We don't have enough to give one to every team.
But we know the major
So,
fields where all the sports.
That's
play.
what it is.
Right.
So the thing is, the way it works is Jean meets with the teams and says, okay, I know that you don't ever use more than 3 home teams at a time, like 3 home fields at a time. So you're getting 3 AEDs. You guys now have to figure out who's going to bring the AED to make sure that it's at that field that day. Do you have to bring AEDs to away games too? No,
That's
just, okay,
responsibility of other programs.
okay.
And the whole philosophy behind that is if we put them as permanent mounts at the facilities, then it's our responsibility to make sure that they're charged, they're not damaged, they're working.
Right.
So by giving them to the sports organization, it's up to them to make sure they're at the field and they're working.
Okay. Last thing was I brought it up, Tammy Horsfield had put requested that we look into providing transportation to the employees of the different businesses in town. I just wanted the council's approval to talk to the rec department about the feasibility of using the senior bus on the off hours when they're not using it, and maybe be able to have the businesses offset the cost of that bus for the seniors.
Yeah, especially if they can cover the cost.
Okay.
I mean, that's my comment.
Sounds good.
They also would like to go to high school games.
Seniors?
They would like to go to football games, they would like to go to lacrosse games, baseball games,
Maybe
basketball.
if we can get the money from the businesses utilization, that we can, use more driver time for those things.
Yeah.
As for myself, I got a couple of things that in no particular order. First, I want to thank everyone for coming. It's nice to look out and not see empty chairs. So thank you for caring about your community and coming here tonight. I also want to thank Mr. Day and for helping us out today, going through that. Thanks for taking the time to put that together. I didn't know that the other professionals are going to be there today. And again, if you can come back next time, we can have a more in-depth discussion and maybe a question and answer session, that would be helpful. So again, thanks for taking the time for that. It was nice last week to be at the high school graduation, and then the next day, I was at the Little Genius Planet. They had a graduation for their pre-K class, and I mentioned that because the proprietor there, the person managing the facility, wanted to single me out to tell me that this person has offices or schools in at least 3 different towns in the county. And the person said, bar none, Sparta is the most wonderful people to work with. And not because we have different rules and regulations. He said pretty much all the towns are the same, but just the people just make it just so much easier to work with, and it's nice to interact. So I want to give a shout out to the people here, and especially to the manager for that. I believe the Plan Endorsement Advisory Committee that we staffed a couple of meetings ago wants to get their meetings going. So I think they were looking for some guidance as to, do they have a secretary? Do I have some money in their budget to spend on whatever they were planning on doing with the Plan Endorsement Advisory Committee? And I don't know if we don't necessarily have to have an answer right now, but I know that committee's trying to get going and planning some meetings, and those meetings will be public.
The funding, just to clarify, would be for the professional or professionals that would
If
assist
any are
with-
needed,
like
yeah.
last year. Yeah, it's a continuation.
We have the Independence Day Parade coming next week on the 4th. Last week, I was visiting with my brother, Thomas Edison Federal Park in West Orange. And I had a chance to speak with one of the federal park managers there and said, hey, we have an Edison stuff going on in Sparta too, which of course this person was well aware. And it made me think that there's an opportunity there. There was quite a large facility over off Edison Road, and I think there's an opportunity for Sparta to highlight the history there, and maybe that could be part of our Revolution NJ discussion. Anyway, I mentioned it because it occurred to me that I think that's an asset that we should use. I believe it's state property, so it's not like we can go and start doing things there. But again, I think it's an asset that we should take advantage of at some point. Our next meeting on July 11th, I believe, is our first one that starts at 7 o'clock. Okay. And it had been our custom for the last couple of years, at least since I've been on the council, to only have one meeting in July and August. I don't think we've made any decisions on that, but just be aware that we might only have one meeting in those 2 months. Again, no decision's been made, but that had been our practice for a while. And that's the end of my business list. This time, I'd like to open it up to the public for any business.
Mark Scott, 9 Pueblo. Whose job is it to find this money for the master plan that we've been talking about?
What master plan? It's stolen, didn't you? Here.
No, not that master
No,
plan.
I'm kidding. Sorry.
But the new master plan, don't we have to, there's been some chit chat, we have to get the money, whatever it is, $10,000, $15,000. Where do we start to do
It's
that?
hundreds of thousands of dollars, so it has to be planned, it has to come before, it has to be, it's not, you don't just do a master plan or a master plan, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. It can
Okay.
be.
Okay.
So the
How do we get
planning board-
started?
it starts at the planning
Yeah,
board.
we've had some conversations with Sam already about the process, and I think once we get quotes or get closer, then we'll get the money separated out. It's not in the regular budget. It's a special process, takes it out of the reserve. We kind of borrow it from ourselves, not simplify it, and we pay ourselves back. But
And there's also grant money that's
there's also grant
available to
money
us to
yeah, it's
help us
available
with
towards
that.
it.
Basically, what it's called, it's a special emergency that can be paid back over a 5-year period. So if it were $500,000, we'd have to pay 100,000 back to ourselves each year.
Thanks. Anyone else? Sure.
I want to go home too. So Chris Hansen, Brandy Ridge Road. Just to feed off your AED conversation, I appreciate that because I am putting together a emergency action plan that I'm submitting to our football league. The only concern I do have is I know down at the field, the main turf field where we have our games, obviously we need an AED there. I do have concerns that we spread out across that park. We all know how important it is to have fast action with an AED. So I don't know what the allocation's going to be, and I don't mind having a conversation with anybody about it, but I think from a football perspective, and probably some other sports, more than one would be helpful just to ensure any liabilities that our organization could have, God forbid, because I know in New Jersey, there was an incident this past year with a youth football player, and an AED wasn't available, and he unfortunately didn't survive. So it is something that I think is important to the residents, let alone our particular program. Okay?
So Chris, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
And please reach out to Jean now, because you guys are getting ready for your season. It's going to
Right.
start in August. So please reach out to her now so she's aware of the need for additional, because I know also football's spread out all over town.
Right.
So where some of the sports only use 1 or 2 or 3 facilities, I know you guys use 4, 5, 6, 7 facilities.
Right.
So please reach out to Jean like tomorrow and just make sure that you guys are aligned with the number that you're going to need.
Will do. In the past several years, I'd like to thank the police department for loaning us one on game days. So it's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Jenny Derrick, step into Sparta. Dan, I'm sorry, I found your email. I already posted the article, but one thing I
wasn't- I
can't
wasn't
find.
shaming you, I'm sorry.
No, I just posted it just now.
Okay.
But the one thing I can't find is the link to the form to submit.
I thought of that after I hit the send button, I swear.
But I
And I'm
can't
not
find it
smart
on the
enough to remember
website
that.
either, so we can't find the master plan. I can't find the link to the form.
If you click on how do I
I'm not making light of that either, because that's troubling. the
I
master
should not have
plan.
made light of that, I'm sorry. I have to apologize for that.
That's all right.
But if you click on how do I and the ellipses, one of the options there is apply for something. You'll see,
Okay.
I can't remember the words, but it's something like that.
Okay, thank you. That might be part of the reason why you don't have as many applicants as you'd like.
Okay.
The master plan missing, how long has it been missing? Do you know?
I don't know. I think it's
Or when did they notice
been
it?
2 weeks,
Okay.
but I'm
Is-
guessing a little bit.
Well, 2 weeks since they discovered that
Right.
it was missing, or,
Right,
we-
right. It could've
but we
been
didn't
missing
know
for a
that.
lot
Because
Yeah,
it's,
exactly.
I can't find it online either. I've looked for it to try to find it online. I can't find updated maps online. There's not, there's a hole in what ordinances are available. You used to be able to search all the way back to the 90s
Yeah.
for ordinances, for resolutions and ordinances that happen in the meetings, minutes and
And
so
even
forth.
meeting minutes were
And
back
you
like 10
can't,
years,
so
yeah.
in order to find any information, I have to go bother these nice ladies. And, even then, we don't know where to look. You just can't find stuff. And it used to be available. We used to have the best search engine. I used to brag about the township's website. The search engine was fantastic. You put in a keyword and you get options for ordinances and everything. Now you can't find anything.
Yeah, I have noticed that as well. And I know that there had been some challenges migrating to the new facility, and but it's June, and we should start getting past those. Yeah.
Hello, Margie Murphy, 9 Pueblo Parkway. Thank you very much, Christine, for coming out. That was tremendous, and I know there was a little debacle about what time and who was going to meet you, but any information I can get you, just to be clear, I don't want you to be called out. We're only open like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're there every day. but we're only open for the public on Wednesday and
Wednesday,
Friday.
Friday,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
And it's
thanks for
because
clarifying.
we don't have enough people. I mean, we're stretched thin. And even the deliveries, and we have applied for a couple grants, and I can get you that information. So if you can do that and help us with it, because we are all 100% volunteers, and we're not experts at this, and we're just going at it, trying to fumble our way through, and IT. If anyone has any help, we did get help from a guy from Sussex County that helped us. But we even feed some of the kids that are going to school at Sussex County. So we give them food. They're in apartments up there. It's just incredible, the amount of, we do, and your suggestion about the shirts, the Sparta Community Food Pantry, serving, with like a circle around, we're going to do that, thank you, with all the different counties, because it's Warren, Morris, Essex, Sussex, Hunterdon, everywhere.
But the thing is, we should all be supporting you because you're supporting all of us.
Yeah, and
that's
no
the
one knows
point.
it.
Yeah.
No one
Well,
knows
they're
it.
going to know it now.
Thank you.
So-
And everybody, so many of them closed down during the COVID and never reopened. And we just went,
I'm going to have a follow-up
So-
meeting with Patty, you, and Valerie
okay?
to start. But I want to also get the senior information and the community information and the stuff on the website too.
Perfect.
So probably like 3 weeks.
Okay.
When everybody gets back. I think there's a lot of vacations going on. So when everyone gets back, we'll sit.
All right.
I'm going to follow up with these guys tomorrow by email about everything we talked about here. An email's going out in probably at next week, the end of next week or beginning of the following, to the entire League of Municipalities to get them on board and invite them to a working session as well.
Great.
So
That would be awesome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
all.
Thank you.
And there are houses in Sparta that I found I was delivering to that are group homes. That I walked up and there was 4 people living there. So we didn't know.
you're not the only one that didn't know. We don't know about them either many times. The state does, but we do not. The state knows, but we do not.
Sold them.
He did some.
Somebody's still running them.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So
Moved.
You have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you again for coming.